Chapter 1051. That dry well is really as scary as you said. Tu Huang said with joy. Yes. In fact, I had already sensed it in advance the moment the extreme yang energy gushed out of the well. While I was retreating, I had already used all my defensive means. However, I only managed to hold on for an instant before I was burnt to ashes by the extreme yang energy in the well. I wasn't careless at all. The power of the extreme yang energy might have already reached the third step. The power of the third step, huh? I didn't expect that 108 vexations well that has been abandoned for many years would still have such terrifying power. This is very similar to what I saw in my dream. Good. This is great. If the power of this well is depleted, I would have a headache instead. 108 vexations well. Is that the name of this dry well? It's really a strange name. In that case, your objective shouldn't be the extreme yang energy in the well, right? Seeing that Tu Huang was not surprised but delighted, Ning Fan could not help but have a guess and asked. Of course not. This well has always been a place of great danger. It's a place where even saints would not dare to act rashly. Even if this well has been abandoned for many years and its power is not as good as before, I won't let you take the extreme yang water from the well by force. Things will be easier now that you've found the well. Next, you just have to follow my instructions and do the same to the well. Ning Fan leaped into the yellow spring for the fourth time. Following the previous method, he entered the palace of EU Palace. At the center of the palace was the dry well that was filled with lifeless qi. Having learned his lesson from the last time, Ning Fan did not get too close to the well this time. Instead, he stopped 10 steps away from the well and chanted an incantation with his fingers. Using a water-dispelling art, he dispersed all the seawater in the palace to the outside of the palace. EU Palace, which was immersed in seawater, returned to its dry environment for the first time in countless years. After dispersing the seawater, Ning Fan squatted on the ground according to Tu Huang's instructions. His palms caressed the patterns on the floor of the palace while the latter's instructions resounded in his ears. The yellow spring here isn't the complete yellow spring. It's just a part of it. I don't know why it was separated from the complete yellow spring of the true world and abandoned in the depths of the Fire Spirit Tower. The origin of the Fire Spirit Pagoda was very mysterious. No one knew why there was such a pagoda in the middle of the sealed space of two boundaries. Very few people knew that there was a part of the yellow spring in the pagoda. Supreme Ox Ghost had once served the divine ancestor of my clan. He was someone who had lived since the ancient times. However, even he couldn't figure out the significance of this pagoda being erected here. He could only speculate that the divine ancestor had erected it here. His objective was probably to construct the complete world of reincarnation. The well control formation in the abandoned EU Palace must have lost all of its spirituality. When you enter the Yellow Springs, the first thing you should do is not to approach the Well of Troubles, but to repair the formation in the palace. This is an important prerequisite for using the Well of Troubles normally. It can prevent the extreme yang water in the well from attacking anyone who approaches. Your formation Dao cultivation is not weak, and your understanding of the general situation is even more profound. If you add on the 9 Nether Ancient Kingdom well-controlling formation, in my hand, it is not impossible for you to slightly repair the well-controlling formation of EO Palace. Here, take the formation diagram. Also, these are the materials that might be used for the repair. Take them and use them. You don't have to return the rest to me. Just keep them for yourself. Ning Fan followed the instructions and examined the patterns on the floor. He found out that these patterns were just ordinary decorations on the surface. In fact, they were unimaginably complex formation patterns. Due to the long period of time and the lack of people to repair them, the lines of these formation patterns had long been worn out. If they are not repaired, they would never be able to be used again. The formation here did not have any destructive or defensive power. It was just an operating formation. Its purpose was to operate the dry well in the palace. In Ning Fan's knowledge, most of the formation principles were very simple. There was only one formation eye, which was the thing that was being controlled by the formation. The operation of the general situation was basically 2 points and 1 line. It was nothing more than going back and forth between the formation operator and the formation eye. This type of formation would never be associated with the word complex. However, the well-controlling formation in front of him had broken his knowledge. The well-control formation here was simply unimaginably complex. There were more than 100 million formation eyes in the space of 100 zhang in the palace. One should know that the number of formation eyes could directly reflect the level of the formation. The complexity of the formation here was something that Ning Fan had never seen in his life. It was even more complicated than the formation marks of the saint in the corner of the strange eyeball in the past. If he were to find a formation of the same level, perhaps only the strongest formation that Ning Fan had ever seen in his life, the immemorial dust-defying formation that he had used during the blood sacrifice in the ancient wild region could be comparable to it. However, the immemorial dust-defying formation was a formation that was given to the Fan clan in the ancient times by the Lord of Tribulation Sense. Due to its extreme destructive power, it was so complicated. The formation here, on the other hand, was just an operating formation. Was there a need to set it up so complicated? Or perhaps, this indirectly showed one thing. The difficulty of controlling the 108 Well of Troubles was much greater than the blood sacrifice of the entire ancient wild region. If Tu Huang did not give him any help, Ning Fan estimated that he would need to study this place for tens of millions of years before he could understand the structure of the formation. Fortunately, Tu Huang had given him the formation map. Thus, it was not difficult for him to understand the formation here. The well-controlled formation map of 9 Nether Ancient Country. The name of the formation map made Ning Fan pay some attention to it. 9 Nether Ancient Country. Of course, he just paid attention to it. He had no idea what the name referred to at all. Ning Fan did not intend to delve deeper into it. He only paid some attention to it because his God-exterminating shield also had the word ancient country as its prefix. The ancient country in the God-exterminating shield referred to a specific country. As for the 9 Nether Ancient Country, could it be a country that once existed? Or perhaps the ancient word was just an adjective and not its name. Ning Fan spent around 2 hours to roughly read through the map of the well-control formation. Just by skimming through it once, he felt that half of his mental strength had been exhausted. He felt a little dizzy and had a clear understanding of the complexity of this formation. Even if he had the formation map, Ning Fan did not think that he could understand this formation in a short period of time. He could not understand it at all. It was even more impossible for him to comprehend it. However, this did not affect Ning Fan from repairing the formation step by step according to the formation map. It was just like in the cultivation world. The sect protection grand formation of a large sect required a formation master to set up. However, the maintenance and operation of the formation only required the disciples of the sect to operate it according to the map. It was not important whether he understood it or not. As long as he had enough attainments in formations to operate according to the map, it would be enough. First, he needed to redraw the destroyed formation lines. The formation, which was less than 100 zhang in length alone, required more than 3,000 types of materials to draw the formation lines. Moreover, all of them were rare materials. Fortunately, Tu Huang had given Ning Fan a lot of materials to repair the formation. Occasionally, he would be able to find similar materials to replace the missing materials. Thus, the process of redrawing the formation lines was very smooth. 4 hours later, the restoration of the formation lines was completed. After that, Ning Fan needed to open the void formation eye of the formation in sequence and place various immortal materials in the formation eye as the source of power for the formation. The formation eye of such a profound formation was already hard to find. It was not in the space in front of him but in another void space which acted as the formation eye. The 100 Zhang Palace actually had hundreds of millions of void formation eyes. If Ning Fan were to search for them one by one, it would take him countless years. Fortunately, Ning Fan had the formation map. With the map in his hand, Ning Fan moved at lightning speed. He lifted his finger and cut open the void space in this place one after another and placed the corresponding materials in them. Just like that, Ning Fan finished filling the formation I with power after a day. In the end, Ning Fan spent another half a day to activate the secret word force to slightly change the general force of this place. The flow of the general force resonated with the flow of the formation. In this way, the well-controlling formation could finally be considered to have been truly repaired. As the formation was repaired, the dry well which was originally filled with lifeless chi suddenly changed. As time passed, the dry well gradually emitted the breath of a living creature. The bricks and stones on the walls of the well began to wriggle like living flesh and blood. The scene was extremely strange. As for the agitated extreme yang that had accumulated in the well, it gradually calmed down. Then, it turned into large balls of extreme yang flames and turned into golden well water. Even though the well water still emitted a terrifying temperature, it no longer attacked recklessly just because someone was approaching it. Then, an ancient voice reverberated in the palace. It came from the 108 well of troubles that was operating normally. The voice was cold and indifferent. Cultivator controlling the well, which sex immortal edict do you have to wake me up without my permission? Quickly take out your immortal edict to prove your identity. If you don't have the immortal edict, you will be regarded as trespassing into the 9 nether realms. You will be punished by having your cultivation base crippled and your soul imprisoned in the Yellow Spring netherworld for eternity. The voice was not loud, but when it fell into Ning Fan's ears, it carried an unimaginable might of heaven and earth that reverberated continuously. Ning Fan felt a sharp pain in his eardrums. It was as if he was not facing a dry well but a living third-step saint. Of course, as this well had been abandoned for many years, it was extremely weak even though it had reached the 3rd step. Otherwise, Ning Fan would not just feel a sharp pain in his eardrums. He would probably find it difficult to even stand. There's one thing you have to pay attention to. Once the formation is successfully repaired, the 108 well of troubles will be awakened. This well is not an inanimate object. Instead, it's an existence similar to an ancient divine spirit. Don't look at me with doubtful eyes. I have no idea what an ancient divine spirit is. I have traveled to the true world countless times in my dreams, but I rarely heard anything related to ancient divine spirits. It seems like the existence of ancient divine spirits is something even more ancient than the true world itself. Forget it. You won't understand even if I tell you so much. You just have to remember that this well is not an inanimate object. You must treat it as an ancient senior and treat it with caution. What you are going to do next will be extremely risky. You have to impersonate someone else in order to use the well. This well has been sleeping for a long time. Since it has just been awakened by you, its consciousness must not be very clear. With my attainments in illusion techniques and some special techniques, I will try to deceive this well. If you succeed, you will continue with the next step. However, if you fail and it sees through your deception, our plan will end here. You don't have to care about anything else and just run away. You must not be killed by the well. The ability of this well is highly likely to exceed the ability of your treasure box to reverse the flow of time. Do you understand what I mean? If I am killed by the well after it awakens, it is highly likely that I will not be able to reverse the flow of time. Is this what I mean? Tu Huang's words were still ringing in Ning Fan's ears. His expression did not change, but his spirit was unprecedentedly focused and cautious. What he was going to do next was to impersonate a disciple of a powerful force in the true world to use the well. If the impersonation fails, he must escape immediately. Tu Huang is an immortal emperor of the palm position of illusion. I wonder if his illusion technique can deceive the well which has just awakened. Junior, quickly show me the immortal imperial edict that you are holding. The well urged him once again. The aura force it exerted was much stronger than the first time. The immortal imperial edict is here. Ning Fan took a small step forward, leaving a footprint of golden flames on the ground. He used the prestige art to remove the aura force of the well's words. Then, he turned his hand and a golden book appeared in his hand. He pushed it slightly towards the top of the well using his magic power. Of course, this golden book was fake. It was created by Tu Huang using his illusion technique. If the well was in its peak state, it certainly would not be deceived by such a small Tao of illusion technique. However, it was not in its peak state right now. Thus, there was a slight chance of success. Suddenly, a palm that looked like a human or a beast reached out from the golden water of the well. It grabbed the golden book and dragged it into the well. After tens of breaths, the well's voice resounded again. However, the golden book was not returned to Ning Fan. This time, the well's voice was not as cold as before. Instead, it sounded a little more polite. So you are a disciple of the Feng Ling sect. I hope that you will forgive me for my rudeness just now. However, I didn't expect that the sect would still need my help even though I have been abandoned for many years and ended up in the illusionary world. It is my honor to do so. However, there is one thing that I must warn you about. Because you have been abandoned, the amount of extreme yang water that you have left is less than 1/10,000th of what you had when you were at your peak. Besides, the reincarnation in this illusionary world has a huge restriction on you. If you want to see the reincarnation of the third ring of the heavenly Tao from me, I'm afraid you will be disappointed. My current strength is only enough to see the reincarnation of the second ring of the heavenly Tao at most. Moreover, I can only see a very small part of it. Please forgive me, Venerable Envoy. If you want to see the reincarnation, please do as you please. I have just woken up and I need some rest. Thus, I won't be serving you anymore. Please forgive me, Venerable Envoy. As soon as he finished speaking, the wriggling of the bricks of the well disappeared. The life chi in the well was also withdrawn. The entire palace regained its silence. Only the faint sound of the formation's operation could be heard. Seeing that the well believed his identity, Ning Fan felt relieved inwardly. Very well. I have succeeded in this step. Next, I can use the power of the well to see the past, present, and future that Tu Huang wanted to see. Kiki, it was a little embarrassing to talk about it. The Slaughter Emperor had explained so much to Jiang Yi, but Jiang Yi had only understood the phrase, this well can see the past, present, and future. The complete 6 paths of reincarnation should include the 12 Yin mountains, the 14 Yin rivers, the 10 ghost gates, the 2 forgotten rivers, the 9 nether yellow springs sea, the reincarnation gate, the Tao transformation mountain, and many other components. The 6 paths of reincarnation is the largest reincarnation connection point in the world. Here, you can learn everything you want to know. The 108 Well of Troubles is one of the reincarnation connection points, but compared to the River of Forgetfulness, its level is actually much lower, and its deduction power is also far inferior to the River of Forgetfulness. Speaking of the Well of Troubles, I have to tell you how it got its name. One look and I can tell that you don't know much about Buddhist scriptures. Don't you know that in Buddhism, there is a saying called the 108 Troubles? When we talk about the 108 troubles, we have to talk about the 6 roots of a human. These 6 roots are divided into good, evil, and peaceful. They are also divided into pure and tainted. Altogether, there are 36 troubles. In one lifetime, one will encounter 36 kinds of troubles. If it is the past, present, and future lives, one will encounter 108 kinds. This is also the reason why the temple bells usually ring 108 times. I don't understand. The place that the Slaughter Emperor mentioned and the matter about the reincarnation connection point. I don't understand at all. You asked me what the reincarnation connection point is? Of course, it refers to the place where many reincarnations are connected. What? You still don't understand? This is such a headache. How can I explain it to you? I'm not good at teaching people with words. Reincarnation is a very mysterious thing. It doesn't just have one layer. Instead, it has layers upon layers. Every layer of reincarnation is like a parallel universe. Every person that extends out from that parallel universe can have countless past and countless future. You can understand the reincarnation connection point as the boundary of different parallel universes. Your past might not necessarily be what you have experienced in this lifetime, your future might not necessarily be what you have encountered in this lifetime. Do you understand? You still don't understand? Let me explain it to you this way. The so-called reincarnation connection point is the place where you can see your past, present, and future. You should understand it now, right? The 108 well of troubles can show you your past and future. Such a place is called the reincarnation connection point. Oh. Interesting. You said that you have encountered a lake which is located in one of the lower worlds in the 4 heavens and 9 worlds that you mentioned? It can reflect the past. Yes. That lake is a reincarnation connection point. However, a complete reincarnation connection point can reflect the past and the future at the same time. The place that you have encountered is probably not complete but incomplete. Besides, the reincarnation connection points also have different levels. The higher the level of the reincarnation connection point, the more things you can see. Some past and future that are related to the great secrets of heaven and earth can only be seen at the highest level of the reincarnation connection point. If you don't understand what I have just said, you better remember it. These are all great knowledge that I have heard from the saints. You just need to remember it and slowly digest it. There are only benefits and no disadvantages. Do you understand? I don't understand. For the first time, Ning Fan realized that the generation gap between him and Tu Huang was actually so huge. He actually could not understand any of the knowledge about reincarnation that Tu Huang told him. Countless reincarnation connections. Layers upon layers. The past is not the past and the future is not the future. Parallel universe, I don't understand. I don't understand, because Tu Huang often dreamt about the true world, he often listened to the saints preaching the Tao in his dreams. Therefore, most of the things that he comprehended were knowledge that only third-step saints could understand. It was definitely not something that Ning Fan could understand with just a few words. Of course, it doesn't matter if he doesn't understand it. Ning Fan just needs to know what he has to do at this moment. He slowly walked to the side of the well and stuck his head out to look at the water. This time, he naturally would not be attacked by the extreme yang power in the well anymore. However, according to Tu Huang, if he dares to do something like snatching the extreme yang power in this well, he would still be attacked. This kind of greed must be restrained. The ancient well was calm and tranquil. However, it was reflecting many scenes. Those scenes were none other than the things that happened in the past and the future of countless cultivators. There were too many of them. There were too many scenes reflected in the well, making it impossible for Ning Fan to see any of them clearly. Only by using the correct method could he see what he wanted to know from the well. In the past, Ning Fan had gone to the Sword Inquisition Lake in the Sword World. In the reflection of the lake, he saw his past life as a butterfly. According to Tu Huang, the Sword Inquisition Lake was an incomplete reincarnation connection point. It could only see the past but not the future. Moreover, the Sword Inquisition Lake could only see his past, however, the Well of 108 Worries was different. According to Tu Huang, this well could not only see his past and future but also the past and future of others. The task that Tu Huang gave Ning Fan was to ask him to help him check a certain part of her past. She had a huge doubt in her heart. That doubt was because she suspected that her memory had been altered by a certain powerful expert. She must confirm it through the Well of 108 Worries. She wanted to see if the past reflected by the well was the same as her memory. Ning Fan, do you know that there was once a woman who told me something? She said that I am not me. Only when I am not me will I be me, don't you understand again? Sigh. It's really tiring to talk to you. That woman said that she had altered my memory before. However, I don't believe her. If you can deceive the well, bring my left eye with you and help me check my past. The past reflected by the well is real. It is so real that even a fourth-step immortal sovereign can't change it. No matter how strong that woman is, she won't be able to reach the bottom of the yellow spring, let alone change this reality. She is Supreme Venerated 10 Bs. She is the other supreme venerated being among the 5 great supreme venerated beings of my clan other than supreme venerated Ox Ghost. Her strength is ranked 5th while supreme venerated Ox Ghost is ranked 4th. She has lived in Lioli city of the Middle State for countless years. However, everyone has been deceived by her illusory technique. Everyone thinks that she is just a singer who has just arrived at Lioli city. Everyone just calls her Ah Feng. She can transform into thousands of different appearances as she pleases. However, the one she uses the most is Ah Feng's face. According to her, she used this face when she altered my memory in the past. Go and take a look at my past and see if this face has ever appeared. Tu Huang's words echoed in Ning Fan's ears. There was an indescribable helplessness and nervousness in her voice. She was completely different from her arrogant and domineering self in the past. Ning Fan remained silent for a while. Then, he took out a scroll and slowly unrolled it. On the scroll, there was a woman whom Ning Fan found very familiar. At first glance, it was actually Dugu. However, if he takes a closer look, there was something different about her. The woman in the portrait had an extremely similar appearance to Dugu. However, she was wearing the clothes of a singer. It was not Dugu. Her chi was completely different. The woman in the portrait was the strange woman whom he met on the way to save Old Wu. It was the strange woman who looked like Dugu. Vast expanse butterfly, do you need help? It seems like you don't know me anymore. I am Ah Feng, Feng of Xiu Fang. The little turtle you are looking for is at the Southern Medicine Temple outside the Eastern City Gate. It was the woman who called herself Ah Feng. On that day, Ning Fan already felt that the strange woman's cultivation base was unfathomable. However, he did not expect that this strange woman was actually one of the 5 great supreme venerated beings of the Great Humble Clan. Her true identity was the Supreme 10 Wasps. Why does this woman look so similar to Dugu? Why does this woman know that I am a butterfly? Why did she say, "You don't know me"? Weren't these the words he heard in the hidden scripture pagoda given to him by the ancient Chaos Emperor, outside the last stone door? Is it a coincidence? However, with so many coincidences put together, there is something wrong no matter how I look at it. My mission is to borrow the power of the 108 Well of Troubles to look through Tu Huang's past, to find out if this person has ever appeared before. After looking through it, I will engrave a copy of what I saw into Tu Huang's left eye. After helping Tu Huang, if I still have doubts in my heart, I can naturally use this well to look at my past and future. I have already seen the past. It is the experiences of the butterfly in the previous lives. As for the future. Can something like the future really be seen so easily? Hee hee. Interesting. What will my future be like, or perhaps, the future of Ji Xiu could not be seen from the well at all. After all, the path of Ji Xiu had already been cut off by heaven. It was not surprising that he could not see any future. Ning Fan kept the portrait and took out Tu Huang's left eye with a flip of his hand. In order to see the past and future of others, he needed some medium. He extracted a trace of qi from Tu Huang's left eye and threw it into the golden well water. All of a sudden, the countless images reflected in the well water began to decrease. Not long after, only Tu Huang was left in the image of the well water. In those images, there was Tu Huang's past when he was young, the shepherdess's past when he was waiting on the ship with a frown, and the future that was filled with blood. The future is filled with blood. Is there some kind of bloody calamity happening? Ning Fan frowned. Even though Tu Huang did not tell him to look at the future, he still saw it unintentionally. It seems like Tu Huang's future is going to be filled with a huge calamity. Chapter 1052. Should I take a look at Emperor Slayer's future? If Emperor Tu really had to face a bloody calamity in the future, would Emperor Tu be able to avoid this calamity with just a reminder from him? Let's check on her past first. As for her future, I'll spend more effort to check on her after I'm done with her past. She has been very kind to me along the way, so I ought to repay her. Ning Fan lifted a finger and touched his glabella. Then, he pulled a thin thread of spirit sense from his glabella and tossed it towards the direction where the fragments of Sovereign Slayer's past were in the well. The threads of divine sense continued to descend, but as soon as they came into contact with the water, they were immediately burned to ashes by the blazing well water. All of a sudden, Ning Fan felt a burning pain through the connection, making his sea of consciousness feel like it was on fire. The excruciating pain was hard to understand. As his face turned pale, blood actually trickled down from the corner of his mouth. At this critical moment, Ning Fan did not have the time to wipe off the blood stains. Instead, he closed his eyes and received the massive amount of information that he received from the well water the moment the thread of spirit sense was incinerated. Those pieces of information were countless scenes related to Sovereign Tu's past. They contained the experiences of his entire life. They were the things that Ning Fan fished out from the water at the cost of injuring his sea of consciousness. The amount of information was too much. Therefore, when he received this information, it also brought a huge burden to his sea of consciousness. It was as if his sea of consciousness was going to explode from the overload of information. Whether it was the injury to the sea of consciousness or the overload, it was the price he had to pay to see the well of worries. Of course, if Ning Fan was strong enough to reach the third step, his spirit sense would enter the well like a fish entering the water. He would not be injured at all. Strange, if this child is really from the Fengling sect, how could he be injured by a mere extreme yang water? Although the Fengling sect wasn't the strongest of the ancient sacred sects, it could rank in the top 10. Very few of the envoys they sent were lower than the incipient saint realm. Even if the second step disciples occasionally came, they would definitely be those disciples who had cultivated the divine spiritual sense. With the strength of the divine spiritual sense, how could it be injured by the extreme yang water? Could it be that this child's Fengling sect identity is fake? The scene of Ning Fan coughing out blood had aroused Cho Jing's suspicions. Thus, he began to check the immortal imperial edict that Ning Fan had given him again. This inspection was incredible. The more he looked, the angrier the well became. This immortal edict was actually a forgery. Previously, it had just woken up and its divine sense was unstable. Therefore, it didn't see through the illusion on the immortal edict. But now that it was looking at it again, it was getting clearer. A mere second-step illusion actually deceived him. The junior in front of it was actually trying to encroach on the samsara that it controlled. How audacious! How dare you! How dare he impersonate a glory sect disciple! You're courting death. At the same time when Ning Fan received the stream of information, a massive killing intent that was like the reverse flow of the ancient times roared out from the well of worries. Under that massive killing intent, the space in this place actually froze. At the moment when the killing intent spread out, Ning Fan's pupils shrank. How could he not know that the immortal edict's illusion technique had already been seen through? Damn it! I don't have time to find out the future of the Emperor Slayer. He didn't even have time to investigate his past and future. Now that his identity had been exposed, he had to leave this place immediately. Prajna Paramitha. Almost at the same time when the killing intent of the Well of Vexation was triggered, Ning Fan reached into his bosom and took out the pig-faced treasure box. He chanted an incantation to activate the treasure box. In a split second, a huge amount of moonlight energy was emitted from the treasure box. Like a feather robe, it wrapped around him, and then the time around him seemed to reverse. His thinking was very simple. Escaping from such a terrifying well of vexation was as difficult as ascending to heaven. Since that was the case, he might as well take a shortcut and directly reverse the flow of time, returning to the safe and sound past. It was a good idea, but it was useless. Good. Good. How dare the thief! How dare you impersonate a glory sect disciple to wake me up? Do you think you can escape from me just by relying on a substandard spatial treasure? What wishful thinking! Ancient time will stop for this old man. In the well water, a large hand that looked like a human or a beast suddenly stretched out. With a simple press of its 5 fingers, the time flow in this place actually froze in an instant. It could not go forward, nor could it go back. Instead, time and space were frozen. Reversing time was ineffective. After he raised his hand to freeze the flow of time in this place, the gigantic hand suddenly stretched out, bringing with it a vast wind pressure. Then, it clawed at Ning Fan's head. The strength of his 5 fingers was definitely enough to crush the entire starry sky, causing the yellow spring ocean in this place to surge violently. Master, be careful. Zhu Er's alarmed warning came from the treasure box. Clearly, he was frightened by the power of the Well of Worries. However, there was no need for Zhu Er's unnecessary warning. Anyone could see that if they are attacked by this gigantic hand, they would certainly die. At this moment, Ning Fan's heart had already sunk to the bottom. His expression was even more gloomy. Facing this well, Ning Fan had the greatest sense of crisis in his life. This well was too strong. It was so strong that he could not resist it. No second-step cultivator would be able to withstand the strength of this gigantic hand head-on. Not even he could. Then, could he only watch helplessly as he died here? How could he just wait for death without doing anything? Freeze! Ning Fan withdrew his body and retreated. While retreating, he pointed at the sky at the incoming gigantic hand, trying to use the heaven freezing technique to slightly stop it from approaching. However, the difference between their cultivation bases was just too huge. After using the heaven freezing technique, it actually only stopped the gigantic hand for a moment. Then, it continued to approach him. However, this short moment was only enough for Ning Fan to take a step back. He only managed to take a step back from the side of the well towards the entrance of the hall. The tremendous backlash from the heaven freezing technique directly made Ning Fan spurt out blood. His chi became weak and he was severely injured. Despite being severely injured, Ning Fan's eyes did not have the slightest hint of panic. There was only the calmness of death. Before entering the Yellow Spring, he had already considered all the dangers of this journey. The unforeseen event in front of him was the worst-case scenario. He was already mentally prepared for the possibility that his identity might be exposed. He was also prepared for the fact that he could not reverse the flow of time. He had received many favors from Sovereign Tuesday. Therefore, even if this place was dangerous, he would not run away. Of course, he did not plan to die here. Freeze! He actually used the heaven freezing technique on the gigantic hand for the second time. The difference in cultivation base between Ning Fan and the Well of Vexation was just too huge. Using the heaven freezing technique rashly was an act of desperation. Under the backlash, Ning Fan's physical body began to crumble. However, he managed to freeze the gigantic hand for an instant. At the same time, he took another 2 steps back. Currently, he was already 3 steps away from the Well of Vexation. He was still 100 steps away from the exit of the hall. If he could only move 1 or 2 steps forward by freezing the Well of Vexation once, he would need to freeze the Well of Vexation for at least 10 times before it would be enough for him to escape from the palace. However, that was obviously impossible. His physical body and primordial spirit could not withstand so many backlashes. If he suffers too many backlashes, he would directly die from the backlash. The reason why he used the heaven freezing technique twice in a row was not just to stop the attack from the Well of Vexation. More importantly, it was to stop the flow of the great force in this place. Why could the Well of Vexation be awakened by him? Why could it operate normally? It was because of the existence of the Well of Vexation formation in this place. The operation of the formation provided the Well of Vexation with enough power to wake it up. Ning Fan would never have the arrogant thought of going head-on against the Well of Vexation, which possessed the power of a third-step expert. He might not be able to defeat the Well of Vexation, but he had a way to stop the flow of the great force in this place and stop the operation of the Well of Vexation formation in this place. The reason why the formation could exert its power was because of the influence of the great force. If the great force stops flowing, the operation of the formation would also stop. If the Well of Vexation formation stops operating, it would mean that the Well of Vexation had lost its source of power and would fall into a deep slumber once again. This was the result that Ning Fan wanted to achieve. As expected, the heaven freezing technique that Ning Fan used twice in a row was not useless. it actually stopped the operation of the Well of Vexation formation. With the high grade of the Well of Vexation formation in this place, Ning Fan would definitely not be able to stop it with his current cultivation base if it was in its optimal state. However, Ning Fan was not a fool. Since he knew that his plan might be exposed, how could he not have a backup plan? Even though he had redrawn the formation lines of the Well of Vexation formation, he did not draw many key parts of it too firmly. Instead, he left many cracks on it. The immortal materials that he used to fill the eye of the formation were not the key parts. He only filled 3 portions of the immortal materials when the requirement was 10 portions. In this way, even though the Well of Vexation formation was still operating, it was not impossible for him to stop it from operating. Only by planning before taking action could he escape from this place of great danger unscathed. This was something that Ning Fan had planned from the very beginning. It was precisely because he had prepared a backup plan that he could remain calm in the face of the rage of the Well of Vexation. Crack! It was the sound of part of the formation lines cracking. Hiss! It was the sound of the liquid water of the extreme Yang Well turning back into the form of flames after losing the support of the formation. The Well of Vexation was instantly enraged. The gigantic hand that was trying to attack Ning Fan also lost its support because the Well of Vexation formation had stopped operating. Hence, its strength was greatly weakened. In just a few breaths, it had shrunk by 1 size. The power of the attack of the gigantic hand was greatly reduced. It directly weakened to the level of an immortal Emperor realm attack. Moreover, it continued to weaken towards the critical point of an immortal King realm attack. Seeing that the heaven freezing technique had succeeded twice, Ning Fan's expression became even calmer. The corner of his mouth curled into a smile and he continued to flee towards the entrance of the hall. However, this time, the gigantic hand of the Well of Vexation did not chase after him. Instead, it watched Ning Fan flee for another 20 steps. There were only 90 steps left to the entrance of the hall. At this moment, the Well of Vexation was incomparably shocked. Because of that horrifying existence, it actually hesitated. The gigantic hand stopped in mid-air and did not attack Ning Fan again. What made it hesitate was the heaven freezing technique that Ning Fan used. This is the Samsara sealing technique. Could it be that this young man is a disciple of the chaotic Kuan sacred sect? He isn't a disciple of the Feng Ling sect, but he comes from the chaotic Kuan sacred sect, which is even more honorable than the Feng Ling sect. Could it be that? No, that's not right. It can't be like this. This isn't the Samsara sealing technique. It just looks similar. It doesn't have the power to seal the Samsara sealing technique. I was almost scared to death by this technique. Junior, you can't deceive me. Don't you dare. After a short moment of hesitation, the Well of Vexation suddenly came to his senses. He let out a furious roar and his gigantic hand rapidly extended. In just an instant, it had covered the distance of 20 steps and was about to grab Ning Fan's head again. The attack came again. However, the power of the attack this time had already fallen to the level of a 4th Tribulation Immortal King. The sense of danger that it brought to Ning Fan was no longer that of certain death. As long as Ning Fan desperately activated the protective golden light of the God-vanquishing shield, he would be able to block 70 to 80% of the attack's power. While he was retreating, he naturally activated the protective golden light of the God-vanquishing shield to defend himself. Golden light protection. The golden light of the God-vanquishing shield expanded crazily, enveloping Ning Fan, who was retreating. At this moment, Ning Fan did not break the punishment ring. Instead, he spat out a few mouthfuls of blood essence at the protective golden light. His chi became weaker again, but it made the golden light expand greatly, giving off a terrifying aura of force. Boom! The gigantic hand crashed against the protective golden light. Even though its power was greatly reduced, it was still instantly crushed into countless light spots by the hand, causing it to directly collapse. The remaining force of the attack, on the other hand, landed on Ning Fan's chest, causing him to spurt out blood and fly backwards. However, he used the momentum of the attack to escape another 10 steps away. He was only 70 steps away from the entrance of the hall. Ning Fan's white robes were already stained with blood. His physical body was already on the verge of collapsing because of the backlash and injuries he sustained. There was not a single part of his body that did not hurt. However, what remained unchanged was the calmness and calculation in his eyes. At the moment when he released the protective golden light, Ning Fan deliberately revealed a trace of the chi of the god-vanquishing shield in his body, purposely letting the well of vexation notice it, but the well of annoyance's gigantic hand crushed Ning Fan's protective golden light with just a single strike and sent Ning Fan flying with ease. However, it did not continue to pursue him. Instead, it hesitated for the second time. The gigantic hand stopped in mid-air, not daring to move recklessly. The well of vexation was suppressed by the aura of the god-exterminating shield of the ancient country that Ning Fan purposely released. If the well of vexation had not awakened, it would not have hesitated. The extreme yang energy in the well would have been released randomly, and it would not have stopped with any mercy. Unfortunately, the well of troubles had awakened. At this moment, it had consciousness and it could think. Therefore, it couldn't ignore the aura of the god-exterminating shield. It was because this item's reputation in the three great true worlds was too great and resounding, so great that even an ancient god like it could not ignore it. Ancient Kingdom God-slaying shield. Heaven-opening artifact. Furthermore, it was a treasure ranked 19th on the heaven-opening board. This was the annihilation artifact that Patriarch Han Kun had used to suppress the ancient gods. This was a supreme treasure that countless powerful warriors from the three great true worlds dreamed of obtaining. It was actually the aura of this thing. No, it wasn't complete. What he had was only a part of the god-destroying shield of the ancient country. However, even if it was only a part of it, it shouldn't have appeared in the hands of a junior. What was the identity of this junior? Was the identity of the Fengling sect real or fake? No. Even the Fengling sect couldn't possibly have a fragment of the god-destroying shield of the ancient kingdom. The Fengling sect was not qualified. The identity of the Fengling sect must be fake. Why did this child pretend to be a member of the Fengling sect? Could it be that this child's true identity, while not part of the spirit bestowal sect, was even higher and more worthy of fear? That was why he couldn't cover it up. Or perhaps, this ancient kingdom's god-exterminating shield was originally the possession of Patriarch Han Kun. Could this kid's true identity be related to the Han Kun sacred sect? Or perhaps, in short, before figuring out this kid's identity, they couldn't kill him recklessly. After all, with its mere status as a slave to the well, it could not afford to offend the giants of the true world. This young man must have a powerful background. While the well was hesitating, Ning Fan was only 30 steps away from the entrance of the palace and he would be able to escape. Seeing that the well was hesitating because of the god-exterminating shield's chi, Ning Fan's smile became even wider. He purposely released a trace of the chi of the ancient kingdom's god-exterminating shield because he wanted to borrow the name of the shield to make the well doubtful. This well had been referring to himself as a slave to the well. Moreover, his attitude towards the disciples of the Fengling sect had changed from arrogance to respect. Thus, Ning Fan had already made some guesses about this well's personality and status. When the well hesitated because of the heaven sealing technique, Ning Fan's guesses were confirmed in his heart. In the three great true worlds, this well was definitely not some supreme existence. Instead, he was more like a small fry who was struggling to survive in the cracks. If it wasn't because of that, how could this well change from arrogance to respect and call himself a slave when he heard that Ning Fan was from the Fengling sect? If it wasn't because of that, how could this well hesitate and not dare to act recklessly because he mistook the heaven sealing technique as the reincarnation sealing technique of the Han Kun sacred sect? This well's heart was filled with inferiority and fear. He was afraid of the great forces of the true world. In that case, when he saw a junior holding the god-exterminating shield of the ancient kingdom, it was understandable that he would hesitate again. This was Ning Fan's goal. The difference between his and the well's cultivation base was too huge. It was impossible for him to escape from this place by force. Only with the help of various schemes could he achieve such an unprecedented feat. With his second step cultivation base which was sealed, he could escape from the hands of a third step expert. If he succeeds, he would certainly shock countless second step old monsters. Of course, the chi of the god exterminating shield of the ancient kingdom could only suppress the well for a moment. It was absolutely impossible for him to make the well obey his orders with just a fragment. Ning Fan would not bet his life on such a small possibility. When the well was hesitating, he took the opportunity to escape. As expected, when he finally reached the entrance of the hall, the well actually came to his senses. His hesitation disappeared and he launched another attack at him. No, this isn't right. The chi of the true world in the fragment of the god exterminating shield of the ancient kingdom has already dissipated. This item definitely doesn't come from the true world. He must have obtained it from the illusionary world. Yes, he is a cultivator of the illusionary world. Killing a cultivator of the illusionary world and obtaining a fragment of the god exterminating shield of the ancient kingdom is not a great crime but a great merit. If the chaotic Kun sacred sect comes to this world in the future to look for this item, they will certainly forgive me for my mistake in the past and summon me back to the true world because of this fragment. I can't let this young man escape. I can't let this great merit slip away. Ignorant child, stay here for me. The giant hand which was initially hesitant became even more murderous and approached the entrance of the hall crazily. Unfortunately, due to the continuous weakening of its power, the power of the attack had already fallen to the level of a second tribulation immortal venerable. It could no longer give Ning Fan the same sense of danger as before. Seeing that the power of the giant hand had actually fallen to the level of an immortal venerable's attack, Ning Fan who had been running away suddenly had a ruthless look in his eyes. He had a crazy idea. If it only has the power of an immortal venerable's attack, his god exterminating shield should be able to defend against the attack of the giant hand once again. The attack would not be able to hurt him. At this moment, he was already 100% sure that he could escape from this place. However, who was he? He was Ning Fan. He had sustained severe injuries along the way and suffered great losses. How could he leave so easily? If he did not fight back when he was being hunted down, could he still be considered as the successor of the Black Devil sect and the disciple of Old Devil Han? He was just one step away from escaping this palace. However, Ning Fan did not take this step. Instead, he turned around abruptly and let out a cold sneer with a hint of madness. Fearlessly, he faced the attack of the giant hand and activated his protective golden light. The attack that was comparable to a second tribulation immortal venerable heavily landed on Ning Fan's protective golden light. However, it was useless. Under the protection of the golden light, Ning Fan was only forced to take half a step back. He forcefully stabilized his body and blocked the attack of the giant hand. For the first time, Ning Fan blocked the attack of the Well of Worries head-on. Then, it was time to counterattack. With a move of his hand, the sea-defying sword was already in Ning Fan's hand. With Ning Fan's cultivation base being sealed, it was too difficult for him to hold the sword. If he only swung the sword once, he could still use the gravity of the sea-defying sword to descend on his own to complete the attack. However, it would be very difficult for him to continue holding the sword and slashing at the enemy. However, Ning Fan only planned to give his opponent a single attack at this moment. He slashed his sword in the direction where the gravity was descending. He did not return a single sword attack. The wind pressure from the sword instantly swept across all directions, stirring up the waves of the Yellow Spring Sea and shaking the palace. That was a strike with the weight of 7 cultivation planets. It was the defiance of an ancient divine being at the third step by a second step cultivator. With just a single sword attack, it cut off the little finger of the giant hand like a steel knife cutting a piece of tofu. The Well of Worries immediately let out a muffled groan. Its heart was filled with anger and even more so, astonishment. It withdrew its giant hand in fear and hid under the layers of extreme yang energy in the well. How would it dare to pursue Ning Fan again when its power was weakened? Obviously, it was afraid and shocked after Ning Fan's counterattack. The little finger that was cut off melted into water the moment it left the giant hand. It was golden water. Water that emitted a massive amount of extreme yang power. Extreme yang water. It was formed from the purest ancient extreme yang in the ancient firmament. Ning Fan was slightly stunned. Then, he let out an arrogant laugh. He displayed his ability and kept the extreme yang water that he had obtained. After that, he kept the ocean-defying sword and dashed out of the palace at high speed towards the surface of the sea. Obviously, Ning Fan did not expect that he would gain something after his counterattack. Initially, he thought that he would not have the chance to collect the extreme yang in the well during this trip. Today, however, he obtained a huge amount of extreme yang just because of his counterattack. If it wasn't for the well of worries that quickly retracted its giant hand out of anger, he would certainly be able to obtain more extreme yang. Hee. Now, that well of worries is afraid of me. Even though his injuries were severe, it was not a waste for him to suffer such heavy injuries after obtaining such a large amount of extreme yang. Damn it! Damn it! You actually dared to cut off my finger. I want you to die. I want you to die. Roar. After Ning Fan escaped, a mad roar resounded from the palace. Of course, it came from the well of worries. That roar was very strange. It was clearly loud, but when it neared the surface of the sea, it would be erased by the water. To put it simply, the sound of the well of annoyance was greatly suppressed, unable to travel out of the yellow springs. However, this roar still brought about a summoning on the spiritual level to the living beings around the yellow springs. This roar was the well spirit venting its anger. It was revenge for losing a finger. In reality, after it roared, the well forced itself to calm down. After it calmed down, the more it thought about it, the more it regretted it. The more he thought about it, the more he found Ning Fan's Dao soldier to be somewhat familiar. When he was furious, he didn't have time to think. Now that he thought about it carefully, he was shocked. That sword. That was an ancient diagram Dao soldier. That was the sea-defying sword. It was actually the sea-defying sword. How could it be the sea-defying sword? The sword of an upper-class disciple of the Hunkin sacred sect. As long as one held the sword, they would be able to enter the sacred sun sequence of the chaotic Kuan sect. It wasn't fake. This kid's identity was truly not simple. He was actually one of the saint sons of the Hunkin sacred sect. Saint. That was a candidate for the fourth step of inheritance in the Hunkin sacred sect. Not good. Not good. He shouldn't have let out that roar. He shouldn't have summoned the living beings of the yellow springs to chase after that kid. That roar he made just now was probably going to cause trouble. If this saint son of the Hunkin sacred sect dies here because of this, then according to the rules of the Hunkin sacred sect, no matter where he hid in the 9 heavens and 10 earths, he would still be killed by the Hunkin ancestral master. He would be annihilated. Wait. You mustn't take his life. You mustn't. I don't want that finger anymore. All of you, stop it now. The well of annoyance wanted to stop something. However, its voice could not reach the surface of the sea. The more it shouted, the angrier the living beings of the yellow springs became. According to the agreement of the ancient country's divine spirit contract, if the well of annoyance roared, it would be summoning all the living beings to chase after the intruder. The living beings near the yellow springs could not hear the voice of the well of annoyance. They could only sense the summoning. They could only carry out the command of the well of annoyance. Chase after the intruder. At the moment when Ning Fan escaped from the sea of the yellow springs and returned to the ship, countless roars of beasts resounded from the direction of the 6 ancient mountains. There were barks of dogs, roars of whales, chirps of birds. They were all different. However, any one of the roars belonged to a true immortal realm cultivator or even an ancient one. In an instant, more than 30,000 rays of killing intent locked onto Ning Fan from the direction of the 6 ancient mountains. No one could stop it. This was destined to be a relentless pursuit. All because Ning Fan had violated the rules of the ancient country's divine spirit contract. You're back. Did you succeed this time? Why are you covered in blood and your injuries are so serious? Wait a moment, what happened here? Why would the beings of the Yellow Springs here erupt with such terrifying killing intent? This was an unprecedented matter. What exactly did you do in the Yellow Springs? As soon as Ning Fan returned to the ship, he heard Sovereign Tu's incessant questions. However, he did not have the time to answer him. In the distant sky, all 6 directions were filled with ferocious beasts. They densely covered the vast sky and were charging towards the ship. There were heavenly dogs, Yellow Springs whales that Ning Fan had seen in Old Man Nyo's place and many other sinister and unknown living beings. All of them had different appearances. The only thing they had in common was their killing intent towards Ning Fan. Ning Fan's heart sank. Then, he sneered. Did the Well of Annoyance summon the living beings of the Yellow Springs who were guarding this place to hunt me down? Heh! How many years has it been since I was hunted down on such a large scale? Do you think it's that easy to take my life? Ning Fan tried to use the Well of Annoyance to retract time. Currently, the treasure box with the pig-faced face still had the remnant power of the Well of Annoyance. In that case, it seemed impossible to use the time reversal technique to avoid the pursuit of the 6 ferocious beasts and return to the past. What exactly did you? I don't have time to explain. Follow me closely. I will bring you away from this place. As soon as Ning Fan's voice fell, he grabbed Tu Huang's hand and pulled him behind his back, protecting him. At the same time, a blood-red light beam which emitted a destructive force fell from the sky and hit the spot where Tu Huang was standing just now. If Ning Fan had been a little slower, Tu Huang would certainly have been hit by that blood-red light beam. That light beam missed its target, but it still hit the deck of the ship. With just a single strike, the keel of the ship was shattered. With a loud bang, the body of the ship exploded into countless pieces. The wreckage sank into the depths of the Yellow Springs and was then crushed into powder by the power of the ocean of the Yellow Springs. Ning Fan abruptly looked towards the east. This attack was coming from that direction. The one who launched the attack was a heavenly dog who looked like the leader of the group. Its cultivation base was at the early thought fragmentation realm. It seemed like it was not far from where they were originally. Now, it had already taken the initiative to attack Ning Fan and Tu Huang together with 10 to 20 heavenly dogs who were at the same cultivation base as Du Zhen and Shikong. Seeing that his attack missed its target, the leader of the heavenly dog led his subordinates behind him and spurted out bloodlight again. At that moment, more than 20 blood-red light attacks fell on Ning Fan and Tu Huang. At this moment, Ning Fan could not fly but he could still jump. At the moment when the last plank of the ship sank, he directly grabbed Tu Huang and leaped from the plank towards the direction of the leader of the heavenly dog. In just a single leap, he had crossed a distance of 100 zhang. More than 20 blood-red light attacks were about to reach Ning Fan's body. Their destructive force was quite strong. In midair, Ning Fan threw a punch with his right fist and directly shattered the countless blood-red light attacks in a barbaric manner. Then, his fist landed firmly on the back of the leader of the heavenly dog. When the leader of the heavenly dog saw that Ning Fan had gotten so close to his back, he instantly felt a little scared. His body swayed, trying to shake Ning Fan off his back. However, how could he succeed? Ning Fan did not waste his breath on the leader of the heavenly dog. He landed a punch on the head of the heavenly dog, causing it to cough out blood and wail in pain. However, it was not killed. Obviously, Ning Fan had purposely held back. He still needed this heavenly dog to carry him out of the Yellow Springs Ocean. Why would he kill it? The purpose of this punch was to make the heavenly dog's sea of consciousness dizzy and make it dizzy. While the heavenly dog was feeling dizzy, Ning Fan's left eye flashed with a demonic light. He had already activated his illusion technique. Just like how he controlled the stone dragon, he easily controlled the heavenly dog. From now on, you no longer belong to this Yellow Springs. You are my servant. Quickly bring me out of this place. No mistakes are allowed. Ning Fan gave the heavenly dog an order. The confused heavenly dog instinctively wanted to disobey Ning Fan's order. However, the power of the illusion technique made its body obedient to Ning Fan. At this moment, it had forgotten its original intention of chasing after Ning Fan. It howled like a wolf and flew into the sky. It carried Ning Fan and Tu Huang on its back and flew towards the oily yellow cloud in the distant sky. Your injuries are very serious. You must heal them immediately. Tu Huang's brows were tightly knitted together. It was not because of the countless ferocious beasts that were chasing after them. Instead, it was because of the injuries on Ning Fan's body. She could not imagine what Ning Fan had gone through in the Yellow Springs for him to suffer such serious injuries. What she could not understand was why Ning Fan's face was still wearing a smile even though his physical body was about to collapse. Could it be that this kid had obtained great benefits in the Yellow Springs? Otherwise, why would he be grinning from ear to ear? But with this kid's temperament, no matter how good the treasure was, he would most likely be able to hide his emotions. Such a wanton and insolent smile was really puzzling. Tu Huang naturally did not know that the reason why Ning Fan felt happy was not because he had obtained a large amount of extreme yang water from the Yellow Spring. Instead, it was because he had successfully counterattacked the Well of Vexation. His personality originally had an insolent side, but ever since he ascended to the eastern sky, because of various reasons, he began to suppress this insolence. He had to endure humiliation and endure again and again. Not so long ago, he was so unbridled in the rain world. When he drew his blade in anger, he dared to go against Moksha Sovereign with the body of an ant and killed the divine emperor of the rain world because of anger. That was his true nature. However, Immortal Emperor Southern Heaven Fate Controller plotted against him, so he had to endure it. Dong Tianchong and the Great Emperor plotted against him, he had to endure it. He had to endure the Dark Race's attack. He had to endure the Great Humble Immortal Emperor plotted against him. However, this time, he did not choose to endure it when facing an ancient divine being of the third step. Instead, he laughed out of extreme anger and slashed the ancient divine being's finger in a disobedient manner. This kind of unbearable vent made Ning Fan, who had been suppressing his emotions for a long time, finally feel satisfied and had an arrogant smile on his face. So what if you're an ancient divine being? So what if you're being hunted by countless living beings of the Yellow Spring? Come. All of you, come. If you want to take my life, sure. Just exchange it with your lives. Come if you have the guts. All of a sudden, heaven and earth were filled with uncontrollable wind and rain because of Ning Fan's killing intent. Above the waves, on the peak of the ancient mountain and in the vault of the Yellow Spring, tens of thousands of beasts were chasing after Ning Fan while the wind and rain roared angrily. Roar, suddenly, hundreds of strange birds with dense yin qi appeared in front of him. All of them had the cultivation base of a true immortal. As those strange birds trembled, countless dark green feather needles flew out from their bodies. Tens of thousands of them shot at Ning Fan like a rain of arrows. Ning Fan placed one of his hands on Tu Huang's head and gently pressed his head down, dodging the wind pressure from the countless feather needles. His other hand clenched into a fist. His ancient devil essence qi surged. When he threw a punch, the sky within 1,000 zhang was instantly shattered. Not only did it destroy the attacks of the strange birds, but it also caused hundreds of them to explode at the same time. Ning Fan did not waste his breath on these strange birds. However, Tu Huang could see through Ning Fan's thoughts from his violent actions. If I want to leave, none of you can stop me. Those who stand in my way, shall die. Chapter 1053. His physical body was already on the verge of collapsing. However, the ancient devil bloodline in his body was boiling with excitement like never before. There was still a barrier between the ancient devil and breaking through to the 10th nirvana of the sky devil race. However, because of this series of life and death crises, the barrier showed signs of melting. Even though the injuries on his body were extremely severe, Ning Fan's strong recovery ability allowed him to heal his physical body without sparing any effort. The paleness on his face gradually recovered. Beside his ears was the sound of wind suddenly ringing in the silent sky. It was the angry roars of over 30,000 vicious beasts coming from all directions. The corners of his mouth were slightly raised in a cold smile due to the ancient demon bloodline controlling his body. The heavenly hound soared into the sky, carrying Ning Fan on its back as it flew towards the exit of the 6 paths of Yellow Springs. The number of beasts blocking their way was getting closer and closer. In the beginning, there were only a few hundred of them. Gradually, there were more than 1,000 of them. However, it could not stop Ning Fan from advancing. On the heavenly dog's back, Ning Fan waved his fists from time to time. At other times, he pressed out his devil finger to suppress the enemies. Blood mist kept bursting out from the sky. Gradually, hundreds and thousands of living beings of the Yellow Spring died in his hands. The number of killings increased. The amplification effect of the killing art was also activated at this moment. Every time a ferocious beast died in this place, bloodlines would be extracted from its corpse and continuously flow into Ning Fan's body from all directions. The ancient devil essence chi that he had consumed was instantly replenished through killing. Along with the massacre, his ancient devil cultivation base also received a temporary boost and kept rising. Killing a beast would increase the cultivation of the killed beast by 10%. In the past, when Ning Fan annihilated the Pill sect, his cultivation base was only at the 8 Nirvana Heaven Devil realm. By relying on the killing power of the killing technique, his cultivation base had already risen all the way to the 11 Nirvana Heaven Devil realm. Now that his ancient devil cultivation was stronger than before, the increase in the killing art he could withstand was naturally greater. Heavenly Demon Nirvana. Heavenly Demon's 11th Nirvana. Heavenly Demon 12 Nirvana. Ning Fan's aura rose steadily as he killed more and more people. In the end, it actually reached the limit of the 12 Nirvana of the Heavenly Devil realm. Yang Kai's only regret was that the Yellow Springs creatures in front of him weren't members of the ancient demon clan, so when he killed them, he couldn't absorb their cultivation for his own. What kind of concept was the limit of the Heavenly Demon 12 Nirvana? At this moment, he could instantly kill the living beings of the Yellow Spring world who were in the thought fragment realm with just a casual punch or a finger. An early thought-shattering Yellow Springs creature could be killed in 3 strikes at most. At the mid-thought demolishing stage, he could take his opponent's life within 10 strikes. Late thought fragmenting. He could be killed in 20 strikes. Moreover, that was the number Ning Fan had not used his trump card. If he attacked with the Liao Dragon Claw and the Spirit equipment, he would be able to kill anyone below the peak of the thought-shattering realm with a single strike. Even a peak thought demolisher could be killed in 2 claw strikes. If he used the full power of the ancient demon mountain breaking strike, after Ning Fan killed thousands of ferocious beasts along the way, the group of beasts in front of him suddenly moved. First, the group of beasts retreated to both sides of the sky. Then, a yellow spring whale that was as huge as a small mountain rushed out from the center of the group. The yellow spring whale's body was surrounded by a dark yellow force. It crushed the vast sky along its way and charged at Ning Fan while roaring. The power of the collision completely reached the power of a newly ascended immortal venerable. Finally, the 10,000 ancient level Huang Quan creature had arrived. Be careful. This is a creature unique to the 6 paths of Yellow Springs, the Yellow Springs whale. The force of its collision is enough to. It was Tu Huang who warned Ning Fan. However, the current Ning Fan did not care about Tu Huang's warning at all. Even though the Yellow Spring whale in front of him was powerful, Ning Fan had nothing to be afraid of. There was no need for him to unseal the punishment rings. It was enough for him to fight it with just his cultivation base. So what if he was a newly ascended immortal venerable? As the ancient demon mountain breaking strike was activated, Ning Fan's essence chi was instantly sucked dry and all of it was gathered on the Liao Dragon Claw on his left hand. Suddenly, a strong gust of wind blew across heaven and earth, causing Ning Fan's black hair to dance wildly. The Liao Dragon Claw emitted black chi that soared into the sky. Within the black chi, there was a vague illusion of a black dragon's fangs. At the next moment, the yellow spring whale arrived. What welcomed it was Ning Fan's Liao Dragon Slash. Those slashes were curved like a dragon's fangs and each of them was 1,000 zhang long. Each slash emitted a monstrous devil sense which was condensed from Ning Fan's life of slaughter. When the devil might spread in all directions, it actually deterred the weak living beings in the surroundings from moving recklessly. The yellow spring whale was the first to bear the brunt of the slashes. However, it relied on its strong physical defense. It neither dodged nor evaded the slashes. Instead, it crashed into the 5 black dragon fangs in a barbaric manner. Relying on its strong momentum and physical strength, it shattered the first and second dragon fangs along the way. However, it also stopped in front of the 3rd dragon tooth. After using up all of its momentum, it was unable to shatter the 3rd dragon tooth. At that moment, it was shocked. Obviously, it did not expect Ning Fan's 5 slashes to be so powerful. Even with its strength as an immortal venerable, it actually could not break it with a single attack. Now, it wanted to slightly dodge the dragon fangs, but it was already too late. The 3rd, 4th and 5th dragon fangs kept magnifying in the yellow spring whale's eyes, which were filled with fear. Then, its physical body was penetrated by the remaining 3 dragon fangs. Rip! Blood rained down from the sky. Then, the gigantic corpse of the yellow spring whale was crushed into countless pieces and fell into the sea of the yellow spring below. Nothing was left of it. A thick wave of shock and fear instantly swept through the minds of every living being of the yellow springs in this place. An immortal venerable yellow spring whale was actually killed by Ning Fan in just a single attack. Even Tu Huang was a little shocked at the moment. If Ning Fan instantly killed an immortal venerable yellow spring whale with his full cultivation base, she would not be surprised at all. However, one should know that Ning Fan's current cultivation base was restricted by the Great Punishment Ring. He could not exert the strength of an immortal venerable yellow spring whale at all. Even so, he still managed to kill an immortal venerable yellow spring whale. Along the way, she thought that she had already understood Ning Fan's full strength. However, it seemed like her understanding of Ning Fan was still just the tip of the iceberg. It seems like I don't need to withdraw my cultivation base to deal with the current predicament. Tu Huang clicked his tongue inside. Don't worry. Ning Fan's expression remained calm even though his attack succeeded. Obviously, such a result was already within his expectations. The limit of the 12 nirvana of the heavenly devil realm was only a step away from the true ancestral reversion realm ancient devil. With the physical strength of an ancient devil which was far beyond the same realm as him, Ning Fan's current physical strength was actually slightly stronger than the yellow spring whale. He already had the upper hand in the first place. In addition to the critical damage of the ancient devil mountain breaking strike, it was not surprising for him to instantly kill the yellow spring whale in just a single attack. The only problem was that the ancient devil mountain breaking strike consumed a huge amount of essence chi. Currently, the essence chi in Ning Fan's body was almost depleted. Fortunately, this was a battlefield with countless enemies. As long as he kills them, he would be able to recover his essence chi. After killing another few hundred living beings of the Yellow Spring, Ning Fan's essence chi had recovered to its full state. If there are more ancient living beings attacking him, he could still use the ancient devil mountain breaking strike. Of course, it would be better if he did not have to fight with these living beings of the Yellow Spring. Ning Fan secretly calculated. With his current cultivation base that had been enhanced by the killing technique, even if he uses the ancient devil mountain breaking strike, he could at most deal damage to immortal venerable realm living beings of the Yellow Spring. It would be very difficult for him to deal fatal damage to immortal king realm living beings of the Yellow Spring. The problem was that among the ferocious beasts that were chasing after him from the direction of the 6 ancient mountains, there was no lack of immortal king realm chi. If I escape from the 6 paths of Yellow Spring, I wonder if these living beings of the Yellow Spring will chase me all the way out of the Yellow Spring. Or perhaps, their pursuit will only stop at the inner part of the Yellow Spring. It's already the 28th day of the illusory trial. According to the rules of the illusory trial, the passageway to leave the Fire Spirit Tower will open 3 days before the end of the trial. If the participants don't wish to stay here any longer, they can leave in advance. If I leave the 6 paths of Yellow Spring and these living beings of the Yellow Spring are still chasing after me, I can just escape from the Fire Spirit Tower. There's no need for me to stay here any longer. Even though I'm no match for those immortal King Realm living beings, they won't be able to stop me if I want to leave. Bang! 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 Beasts that blocked Ning Fan's path were constantly destroyed by him. They screamed and died. Finally, Ning Fan arrived at the entrance of the 6 paths of Yellow Spring. Under Ning Fan's command, the Heavenly Hound carried the 2 of them and charged towards the oily yellow cloud in the sky. That was the spatial entrance of the 6 paths of Yellow Spring. There was an extremely terrifying high-grade profound illusion technique there. Ning Fan's spirit was unprecedentedly concentrated. When he entered the 6 paths of Yellow Spring, he was completely defenseless against the illusory technique at the entrance. If it wasn't for Tu Huang who paid the price to save him, he would certainly have died in the battle between saints in the illusory technique. He admitted that the illusory technique at the entrance of the Yellow Spring was very strong. However, he would never allow himself to fall into the same trap twice. At least when he leaves the Yellow Spring, he would never allow himself to fall into the danger of the illusory technique again. Could it be that Tu Huang had to pay the price to save him again? Of course not. In his eyes, the green light of the 2nd level of the Heaven Realm was fully released. His entire eye turned green. The power of the dark yin-yang was fully released from his glabella. Heaven and earth instantly fell into darkness. The effect of the dark yin-yang illusion technique also took effect at this moment. In his left eye, the Fu-Li illusion-breaking innate skill was activated. The demon blood in Ning Fan's body was burning. See through it. See through it. He wanted to see through the illusory technique of this place. He wanted to leave this place unscathed under the attack of the illusory technique with his own strength. Just as the Heavenly Hound crashed into the yellow cloud, a massive power of the illusory technique swept towards Ning Fan's sea of consciousness, trying to pull him into the illusory technique again. Tu Huang frowned. He planned to make another move to save Ning Fan. This time, however, Ning Fan did not fall into the illusory technique after the first wave of attacks. Instead, he remained clear-headed. He gently stretched out his hand and held Tu Huang's hand, which was about to form a hand seal to cast a technique. Don't worry. These 2 simple words had given Tu Huang an unprecedented shock. Ning Fan actually managed to maintain his consciousness under the attack of the high-grade Supreme Profound Illusion technique. One should know that even immortal emperors might not be able to use such an illusory technique. Tu Huang turned around with surprise and saw Ning Fan's clear eyes, which were covered in green light. Her cultivation base was obviously higher than Ning Fan's. However, when she met Ning Fan's eyes, she felt an uncontrollable sense of inferiority. At this moment, it was as if she was just an ant on the ground while Ning Fan was the supreme great Tao. The 2nd level of the Heaven Realm. He's actually not an ordinary Heaven Realm cultivator. Instead, he's one of the few cultivators at the 2nd level of the Dharma ending era. While Tu Huang's mind was filled with shock, Ning Fan blocked the attacks of the illusory technique from the entrance of the Yellow Spring again and again. A cultivator at the 2nd level of the Heaven Realm could see through all the illusions of the 2nd step of cultivation. Of course, the high-grade Supreme Profound Illusion technique was actually a divine ability of the 3rd step. Just this point alone was not enough to resist the high-grade Supreme Profound Illusion technique. However, what Ning Fan possessed was not only the eyes of a cultivator at the 2nd level of the Heaven Realm but also the dark yin-yang illusion technique and the innate ability to break illusions of the Fu-Li clan. That was why his illusory technique was outstanding. Along the way, he had received many pointers from Tu Huang. Besides, he also had the experience of failing when he fell into the illusory technique of this place before. Never fall into the same pit twice. Never. Ning Fan clenched his teeth and endured the attacks of the illusory technique with all his might. No matter how many waves of illusory technique attacked him, he just did not fall into the trap. Finally, the attacks of the illusory technique subsided. Finally, the light of the 6th floor shone into Ning Fan's eyes. He had succeeded. With his own strength, he managed to block the attacks of the high-grade Supreme Profound Illusion technique head-on. Ning Fan felt an unprecedented mental exhaustion. Obviously, it was because he had consumed a large amount of his mental strength while fighting against the high-grade Supreme Profound Illusion technique. However, what was even greater than the exhaustion was the joy in his heart. Just by fighting against the high-grade Supreme Profound Illusion technique once, his mastery in illusory techniques had actually improved by a huge margin. Many of the knowledge of illusory techniques that he could not understand in the past had actually gained enlightenment during this encounter. However, a moment later, Ning Fan's eyes turned cold. After he left the Yellow Spring, the living beings in the Yellow Spring actually chased after him. It seems like their pursuit isn't just limited to the inner part of the Yellow Spring. They want to chase me to the ends of the world. Unfortunately, it seems like not all of them can chase after me. Ning Fan sneered and gave the heavenly dog he was riding an order. Then, he flew towards the entrance of the 6th floor. The entrance of the Yellow Spring was too small and narrow. Many living beings with huge bodies could not leave the Yellow Spring. There were more than 10 types of gigantic living beings like the Yellow Spring whale in the Yellow Spring. They could not chase after him out of the Yellow Spring. Therefore, they could only stay in the inner part of the Yellow Spring and roar at Ning Fan furiously from the entrance of the Yellow Spring. Most of the living beings who were able to chase after him out of the Yellow Spring were smaller living beings like the Heavenly Dog and the Yellow Spring Lion. However, due to the limited width of the passageway, the 30,000+ living beings of the Yellow Spring had no choice but to fly out of the Yellow Spring in groups. By the time all the living beings of the Yellow Spring who were suitable to chase after him out of the Yellow Spring, Ning Fan had already escaped to the 4th floor of the Fire Spirit Tower. Ning Fan's spirit sense flickered and the drizzle immediately covered the entire 4th floor of the tower. In the sky behind him, there were only a few living beings of the Yellow Spring who were still chasing after him. Their main group seemed to be dawdling on the 6th and 5th floor. They had yet to catch up to him. As for Ning Fan, after he killed another bird-like living being who had just advanced to the immortal venerable realm, the living beings of the Yellow Spring that were chasing after him had yet to show up. Ning Fan swung his fists and killed the living beings of the Yellow Spring who were chasing after him. Then, he took out the illusion trial map with his other hand. He frowned slightly and flipped through it. Strange. It's extremely strange. After escaping to the 4th level, for some reason, he suddenly had a feeling of a whim. It was as if some kind of life and death crisis was constantly approaching him. Powerful cultivators would usually have a hint of premonition towards the arrival of unknown dangers. Ning Fan did not doubt the authenticity of this sense of danger. The question is, where did this sense of danger come from? Was it from the well of vexation that he had offended? No. It doesn't seem like it. The source of this sense of danger seems to be from the lower floors. It's not the well of vexation nor those living beings of the Yellow Spring. Could it be the Meng clan? Ning Fan's eyes suddenly turned solemn. Then, he sneered. That's right. The source of this sense of danger is most likely the Meng clan of the Stone Flame clan. According to the information given by Sovereign Tu, the Meng clan had already decided to kill him because of the death of the devil's son Meng Zhen. They wanted to attack him during the illusory trial. Now, there are only 2 days left before the end of the illusory trial. Is the Meng clan finally going to make their move? Are the elders of the Meng clan waiting for me to walk into their trap at a lower floor? It actually gave him such a huge sense of danger which caused him to have a premonition. This means that the people of the Meng clan are terrifyingly strong, they are at least immortal emperors. Ning Fan, be careful. I sensed a strong qi hiding in the 3rd floor. The other party should be an immortal emperor without a doubt. Besides, judging from the qi, this person cultivates the cultivation method of the Stone Flame clan. Could it be an expert of the Meng clan? Most likely. Hee. I didn't expect that the Meng clan of the Stone Flame clan would actually be willing to send an immortal emperor to kill me. How generous. It seems like this time, if I don't have the resolve to destroy the punishment ring, I won't be able to leave this place safely. Ning Fan was obviously smiling. However, that smile was as cold as the eternal ice. Obviously, he was angry because of the Meng clan's pursuit. He even dared to cut off a finger from the well of vexation of the third step. Facing an immortal emperor of the Meng clan, he would not retreat either. In another 6 hours, I will be able to recover my cultivation base. The other party should just be a 6th tribulation immortal emperor. With my full cultivation base, it won't be difficult to kill him. Let's not rush into the 3rd floor. Let's spend some time in the 4th floor first. When my cultivation base recovers, I will help you kill your enemies. No matter what, you have helped me once. I will certainly help you with this. Tu Huang said straightforwardly. However, as soon as Tu Huang's voice fell, the surrounding heaven and earth suddenly froze. The heavenly hound who was flying forward suddenly let out a miserable shriek as if it had crashed into an invisible wall. Its head was bleeding and it fell from the sky. Ning Fan's eyes immediately turned grim. He held Tu Huang in his arms and leaped down from mid-air, landing steadily on the ground. In mid-air, a bloody light flashed and an old man with a blood shadow walked out from it. He ignored the restrictive force of the sky and stood in mid-air, looking down at Ning Fan and Tu Huang expressionlessly. His incomparably powerful immortal emperor chi swept across the entire 4th floor in just an instant, emitting a killing intent that could destroy heaven and earth. You guys won't have 6 hours to recover your cultivation base. Everything that is happening now is within my, Meng Baixiong's, calculations. That blind woman over there, you can leave. I won't kill you and I don't want to become enemies with you. However, I must kill this external cultivator. No one can save him. Not even you. Chapter 1054. Tu Huang's left eye was tightly shut while his right eye, which was the only eye that was open, was surging with killing intent. Her left eye had yet to return to its original position. How dare a mere 6th tribulation immortal emperor of the Stone Flame sect call her a blind woman? He. How dare he? Meng Baixiong, is it? I've heard of you before. When I became famous, you were just one of the Stone Flame Devil sons. I didn't expect that after so many years, the junior back then has actually become an immortal emperor and is even arrogant enough to order me around. Do you really think that you can do whatever you want to me just because I haven't recovered my cultivation base? So, I can't kill you. Tu Huang jumped down from Ning Fan's arms and said in a deep voice. I'll say it again. I have no intention of becoming your enemy. What I want is just the life of the junior behind you. I'll give you 3 breaths to leave this place. Otherwise, I don't mind killing you as well. Arrogant. How arrogant. This old man who was called Meng Baixiong had obviously seen through Tu Huang's true cultivation base. However, he still dared to utter such arrogant words. If he wasn't extremely foolish or had something to rely on, he would not even be afraid of Tu Huang who was at his peak. Ning Fan's heart sank once again. Behind him was the pursuit of the living beings of the Yellow Spring while in front of him was the obstruction of the immortal emperor of the Meng clan. The situation was really perilous. However, it was still not enough to take his life. 1 breath has passed. 2 breaths. 3 breaths. It seems like you don't want to accept my kindness. If that's the case, I'll kill you as well. Before Meng Baixiong could finish his cold smile, his eyes suddenly flashed with surprise. Without saying a word, he retreated in the vast sky. At the next moment, a spatial crack suddenly appeared where he was standing just now and a rain of 30 million pine needle swords burst out from it. Surprisingly, Ning Fan had taken the initiative to attack Meng Baixiong with the 4 Emperor's Arhat Pine. Currently, he was still being suppressed by the Xinghuan. Thus, he could not fully display the power of the 4 Emperor's Arhat Pine. Even so, the sudden attack of 30 million flying swords still caught Meng Baixiong off guard and caused him to suffer a small loss. Half of his sleeves were shredded by the sudden rain of swords. A wave of anger and humiliation instantly appeared in Meng Baixiong's heart. He did not expect that a mere immortal venerable realm cultivator like Ning Fan would actually dare to take the initiative to attack him. Moreover, he did not expect that Ning Fan's sudden attack could actually cut off half of his sleeve. Not a bad magic treasure to be able to release so many flying swords to attack me. There are even many 12 Nirvana flying swords. This treasure is qualified to be an immortal emperor magic treasure, but unfortunately, it is not enough to fight against me. Immortal cleansing challenge, this old man will take it. Meng Baixiong spat out a beam of golden light in front of him to protect his chest. The pine needle swords that filled the sky were unable to slash down, as if there was a great resistance that was obstructing them. The golden light gradually solidified and turned into an artifact that looked like a golden dipper. A boundless suction force immediately emanated from the golden dipper, causing all the flying swords in the sky to be sucked into the golden dipper. The golden chalice was undoubtedly a connate dermic treasure. All the pine needle swords that were sucked into the golden chalice had their connection with Ning Fan cut off without exception. They could no longer sense Ning Fan anymore. It could be said that they were snatched away by Meng Baixiong. Seeing that more than half of the 30 million flying swords had been snatched away, Ning Fan did not panic at all. He just slightly crooked his finger that was hidden in his sleeve. All of a sudden, the cloud behind Meng Baixiong changed. 5 rays of light of the 12 Nirvana pine needle swords shot out from the cloud and went straight for Meng Baixiong's back. It was a close call. Meng Baixiong did not even have the time to turn around to defend himself. Those flying swords that were taken away were just bait. The real trump card was already hidden in Meng Baixiong's back. Humph. Those flying swords just now were really just bait. I didn't expect you to have 5-12 Nirvana flying swords to sneak attack me from behind. Unfortunately, the gap between our cultivation bases is too big. A sneak attack is useless. Meng Baixiong's mind moved. Golden light shone from his back and a second golden chalice was formed in the golden light, sucking in the 5-12 Nirvana flying swords that were attacking him from behind. The power of the second golden chalice was slightly weaker than the first golden chalice. However, it was not much weaker. It was more than enough to defend against the sneak attack of ordinary 12 Nirvana flying swords. Meng Baixiong did not put Ning Fan's sneak attack in his eyes at all. However, at the next moment, he felt a piercing pain coming from his back. For some reason, Ning Fan's 5 flying swords each contained the power of yin yang and the great 5 elements of heaven and earth. When they formed a formation together, they actually had an unstoppable aura force. They forcefully broke through the suction force of the golden chalice and pierced into his back. Of course, these 5 swords did not pierce deeply. Even though Meng Baixiong did not cultivate his physical body, his immortal emperor's physical body was still very strong. These 5 swords only pierced half an inch into his skin. However, right after that, the flying swords that pierced half an inch into his body actually exploded. Obviously, Ning Fan did not expect the 5 swords to be able to kill Meng Baixiong. However, if the magic treasures explode, it would be a different story. If a 12 Nirvana magic treasure explodes, even an immortal emperor would have to spend quite a bit of effort to calm the powerful explosion. If a total of 5-12 Nirvana magic treasures explode and these 5 magic treasures penetrated half an inch into his flesh, even an immortal emperor would be injured by the explosion. Boom 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 5 explosions resounded almost at the same time. The explosion tore Meng Baixiong's clothes to shreds. His entire back was charred black. When he was hit by the shockwave of the explosion, he lost his balance and was actually pulled down from the sky by the forbidden power of this place, falling straight to the ground. With Meng Baixiong's adaptability, he did not fall and create a pit on the ground. Instead, he landed steadily on the ground. However, his expression was unprecedentedly gloomy. There was even a trace of blood that seeped out from the corner of his mouth. No wonder that good-for-nothing grandson of mine would die in your hands. You used 30 million flying swords as bait and detonated 5 of the 12 Nirvana flying swords in one go. Such boldness and scheming are truly amazing. Even an immortal emperor like me suffered a small loss in your hands, so what can my grandson do? Meng Zhen didn't die in vain. However, if you think you can bridge the gap between the immortal Venerable Realm and the immortal Emperor Realm with this little trick, I have to tell you that your thoughts are very naive. Meng Baixiong sneered and wiped off the trace of blood from the corner of his mouth. With a wave of his hand, the flying swords that filled the sky were finally collected by his 2 golden dippers. Then, he pointed at the sky. Golden light shone brightly and the 3rd golden dipper appeared. Then, the 3 golden dippers fell towards the top of Ning Fan's head at the same time. Only a slight injury was caused to this old man, huh? Facing the 3 golden dippers that were falling from the sky, Ning Fan did not show any expression. He just stomped on the ground and a gigantic formation diagram that was burning with golden flames immediately appeared on the ground. Even though the 3 golden dippers were powerful, the defense of the formation diagram that suddenly appeared was also not weak. After being struck by the 3 golden dippers, only a few cracks appeared on the formation diagram. The formation light was not completely broken. When did this young man? Meng Baixiong's eyes shrunk. He actually did not know when Ning Fan had set up a defensive grand formation in this place. Could it be that this young man had actually calculated the time and place of my attack and set up a formation here in advance? No. That's not right. There were a lot of flaws in this formation. It was obvious that it was set up in a hurry. This young man had secretly set up this grand formation right under his nose after he arrived. However, was this something that a mere immortal venerable external cultivator could do? One should know that formations and the general trend of the world were connected to each other. Therefore, whenever a formation is set up, it would often trigger a change in the general trend of the world. Even the slightest change in the general trend of the world would not be able to hide from Meng Baixiong's eyes. In order to completely hide from his eyes and ears, the person who set up the formation must be able to completely control the general trend of the world when he or she is setting up the formation so that the general trend of the world would not change at all. It was not that there were no people who could do such a thing. However, all of them were the old immortal emperors of the Great Humble Clan. Besides, all of them were formation fanatics who had immersed themselves in the Tao of formations for their entire lives. Could it be that this young man's attainments in the Tao of formations have already reached such a high level? Unfortunately, this formation was set up in a hurry. It could not withstand more than a few of his attacks. No matter how high this young man's cultivation base in the Tao of formations is, it would still be useless. Break for me. 2nd strike. 3rd strike. 4th strike. The defensive grand formation that Ning Fan set up at the last minute by controlling the general trend of the world was only able to withstand 4 strikes from the Golden Dipper. As soon as the formation light was broken, 2 of the 3 Golden Dippers flew towards Ning Fan while the other one flew towards Tu Huang. However, 2 blood-curdling screams were heard. The heads of Ning Fan and Tu Huang were directly smashed into pieces. Only their primordial spirits managed to escape from their corpses. Again. Even Ning Fan and Tu Huang's primordial spirits were destroyed by the Golden Dippers. Humph. You're indeed an external cultivator. Are you going to die so easily? What pitiful weaklings. However, I didn't expect that my attack this time would actually kill the master of the blood martial weapon as well. Everyone in the world knows very little about the background of the master of the blood martial weapon. It's just a rumor. Now, it seems like the master of the blood martial weapon is not as terrifying as the rumors in the outside world say. Meng Baixiong smiled coldly. With a flash, he appeared in front of Ning Fan's corpse. Then, he stretched out his 5 fingers and sucked Ning Fan's storage pouch into his hand. Instead of saying that he came from afar to kill Ning Fan to avenge his grandson, Meng Zhen, it would be more appropriate to say that he was here to retrieve the Golden Flame ancestral token that belonged to the Meng clan. Meng Baixiong opened Ning Fan's storage pouch and reached his hand into it to search for something. Just as his hand reached into the pouch, he felt a sharp pain on his finger. It was as if something had bitten him. Then, he quickly withdrew his finger. To his surprise, the thing that had bitten his finger was none other than the bloody head of his grandson, Meng Zhen. Old ancestor, I've suffered so much. I can't accept this. I can't accept my death. Why did you take so long to come and avenge me? I've been waiting for this day for so long. So long. It was Meng Zhen's head that was biting the flesh and blood on Meng Baixiong's finger while wailing like a haunting spirit. Meng Baixiong's eyes immediately turned grim. According to his deduction, Meng Zhen had died under the seal of the two realms. He died without leaving behind even his bones. There shouldn't be a head left behind at all. Why would Meng Zhen's head appear in the storage pouch of an external cultivator? That's right. That's right. This head is fake. Everything in front of me is actually fake. I've actually fallen into an illusion technique. Break. Meng Baixiong let out a loud roar. The surrounding heaven and earth instantly shattered and fell piece by piece. The scenery in front of him became blurry bit by bit and then became clear bit by bit. It's really an illusion technique. It's really an illusion technique. What made Meng Baixiong feel fortunate was that the illusion technique he had fallen into did not have much destructive power. The damage it caused to his immortal Emperor realm sea of consciousness was almost negligible. However, before he could rejoice, he felt a sharp pain coming from his chest. His chest was directly penetrated by a tremendous force. His entire body was sent flying backward in the vast sky like a rag. The scenery in front of him finally became clear again. Meng Baixiong also finally saw clearly that there was a gigantic being standing in the sky in front of him. With just a punch, it had blasted a bloody hole through his chest. The culprit who had severely injured him with a single punch was a golden mist giant that only had half of its body left. The strength of this golden mist giant's punch had almost reached the strongest power of a sixth tribulation immortal emperor. Meng Baixiong's physical body of an immortal emperor could ignore Ning Fan's 5 sword attacks and self-destruction. However, he could not ignore the punches of this golden mist giant. As the stone flame immortal emperor, Meng Baixiong would never make a mistake. This golden mist giant was obviously the guardian spirit of the golden flame ancestral token. Damn it! Damn it! Damn it! The purpose of his trip this time was to kill Ning Fan and take back Meng Zhen's golden flame ancestral token. Killing Ning Fan was secondary. Retrieving the golden flame ancestral token was of utmost importance. He had also considered the possibility of Ning Fan risking his life to fight back and use the golden flame ancestral token. Thus, before this trip, he had even borrowed a treasure from the Lord of the Stone Flame ancestral token. As long as this treasure appears, Ning Fan's right to use the golden flame ancestral token would be taken away. There was no possibility of him fighting back before his death. However, who would have thought that he would be bewitched by an illusion technique? Before he could activate the treasure that could restrain him, Ning Fan had already used up the golden flame ancestral token before him. I miscalculated. What is the golden flame ancestral token? Anyone who holds the token can make a wish to the golden flame ancestral token. As long as the wish is within the golden flame ancestral token's ability, the guardian spirit of the token will fulfill it for you. The guardian spirit in front of him was summoned by Ning Fan using the golden flame ancestral token. Meng Baixiong's illusion technique was also planted by Ning Fan. Moreover, Tu Huang did not help him from the side. During the trip to the Fire Spirit Tower, Ning Fan's mastery in illusion technique was no longer the same as before. He could even block a high-grade Supreme Profound Realm illusion technique head-on. In terms of mastery in illusion technique alone, he was not inferior to many immortal emperors. In that case, it was not entirely impossible for him to plant an illusion technique on a sixth tribulation immortal emperor. Of course, the process was definitely not simple. It required meticulous planning. An immortal emperor's state of mind was extremely firm. If Ning Fan's current cultivation base does not waver, it would be impossible for him to successfully cast the technique no matter how high his mastery in illusion technique is. In order to make Meng Baixiong's state of mind waver, Ning Fan first launched a sneak attack with 30 million flying swords. Then, he detonated the 5 swords and secretly set up a defensive formation. These series of actions were actually just a bait. His goal was to make Meng Baixiong feel shocked. Being shocked usually meant that one's state of mind had wavered and was no longer calm. In other words, all the previous attacks and defenses were just bait to make Meng Baixiong's state of mind waver. In the end, Meng Baixiong successfully loosened his state of mind. Ning Fan then took the opportunity to plant an illusion technique on him. Ning Fan's mastery in illusion technique was very high. However, he did not know any powerful illusion techniques that could kill with a single strike. Among the illusion techniques that he had learned, the one with the strongest power was the Dark Knight illusion technique that he had comprehended when he achieved grand accomplishment in his demonized Dark Knight Dao Elephant. However, even the Dark Knight illusion technique could not cause much damage to Meng Baixiong, who possessed the Sea of Consciousness of an immortal emperor. At most, it could only confuse Meng Baixiong for a moment. Confusing Meng Baixiong's consciousness with an illusion technique was still not Ning Fan's ultimate goal. His ultimate goal was to activate the Golden Flame Ancestral Token while Meng Baixiong was under the illusion technique. Ning Fan had once asked the Guardian Spirit about it. The answer he received was that the Golden Flame Ancestral Token he was holding was too old. If this token is in its prime, it could grant a wish to kill all experts below the Quasi-Saint realm. However, its power had been greatly reduced now. It could only kill immortal emperors who were around the Sixth Tribulation realm. If the enemy is adept in defense and escaping, there might still be a chance of failure. Ning Fan did not know if Meng Baixiong could be considered as an immortal emperor who was adept in defense and escaping. However, Ning Fan firmly believed that since Meng Baixiong dared to come and kill him, it was highly likely that he had a backup plan to deal with the Golden Flame Ancestral Token that he was holding. Considering the fact that the Golden Flame Ancestral Token could only be used for a limited number of times and this Meng Baixiong was obviously coming for it, Ning Fan inwardly speculated that Meng Baixiong probably had some means that could forcefully stop him before he activates the Golden Flame Ancestral Token. Since the other party was coming for the Golden Flame Ancestral Token, how could he allow Ning Fan to use it? Therefore, Ning Fan needed to use his illusion technique to trap Meng Baixiong for a moment. Just a moment was enough for him to take the opportunity to activate the Golden Flame Ancestral Token and grant a wish. Of course, there was only one wish that Ning Fan made for the Golden Flame Ancestral Token: kill Meng Baixiong at all costs. Bang! 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 In the blink of an eye, the Golden Mist Giant had already thrown out 100 punches at Meng Baixiong. Most of the punches were blocked by Meng Baixiong's Immortal Cleansing Battle technique. However, there were still a small number of attacks that landed on his body. A dignified immortal emperor was actually forced to flee in panic under the attacks of the Golden Mist Giant. His injuries were getting more and more serious. More than half of his physical body had been smashed. His chi was unprecedentedly weak and even his cultivation base was showing signs of declining. He was not a match for the guardian spirit of the Golden Flame Ancestral Token. He was far from it. Even if the power of the Golden Flame Ancestral Token had already been worn away. Miscalculation. 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 He could no longer take back the Golden Flame Ancestral Token. Ning Fan had also lost the best opportunity to kill him. Moreover, what he should be worried about now was not how to kill Ning Fan but how to survive from the hands of this Golden Mist Giant. I must run. Otherwise, I will certainly die in the hands of this guardian spirit. Little external cultivator, you are very good. Very good. It is this old man who has underestimated you. That's why I suffered such a great loss in your hands. However, you can run away now but you can't run away forever. In the future, this old man will surely make a comeback and come back to kill you. At that time, let's see if you still have the Golden Flame Ancestral Token to protect yourself. Humph. Meng Baixiong forcefully swallowed a mouthful of sweet blood. Then, he tore open the surrounding space with both of his hands and disappeared into it in a flash. Seeing that its target had escaped, the Golden Mist Giant smiled coldly. It also tore open the space and chased after Ning Fan. Once the guardian spirit of the Golden Flame Ancestral Token receives the order to kill, it would lock on to the target and chase after him without resting. Either they succeeded in killing the target, or the guardian spirit ran out of energy. Otherwise, the pursuit would never end. Making a comeback, huh? Hee hee. Well, let's see if you can survive from the hands of the guardian spirit of the Golden Flame ancestral token first. Ning Fan's expression did not change at all. He had a lot of great enemies at the Immortal Emperor realm. Meng Baixiong was not one of them. If he is afraid of him, it is fine if he does not cultivate this Tao. You actually forced the Immortal Emperor of the Meng family to retreat with your sealed cultivation base. You are really a freak. Tu Huang, who was at the side, gently closed his left eye. His right eye was shining brightly. Initially, he planned to pay the price of his cultivation base falling to help Ning Fan. Now, it seemed like it was unnecessary. The one who forced Meng Baixiong to retreat wasn't me. It was the Golden Flame ancestral token. Now that I have already used it, I will have a headache the next time Meng Baixiong comes to kill me. Ning Fan sighed softly. If he had the cultivation base of an immortal king realm, he was confident that he could take Meng Baixiong's life with his many trump cards and the Golden Flame ancestral token instead of letting him escape. If he had the cultivation base of an immortal emperor realm, people like Meng Baixiong would not be a match for him at all. It was really a pity that he could not make Meng Baixiong stay. Che. Don't worry. The more ruthless this person is, the more he will not dare to come again. This Meng Baixiong's deduction ability is extraordinary. He could actually predict that my cultivation base has yet to recover. Hence, he could also predict how I will deal with him in the future. This time, it was because my cultivation base has yet to recover that I let an ant like him ride on my head. As for the next time. Humph. If he dares to take even half a step into the middle state, I will certainly appear in front of him within 10 breaths. I will let him know what price he has to pay for being rude to me. Tu Huang smiled coldly. From the beginning to the end, she had never put a mere Meng Baixiong in her eyes. Other than the 5 supreme beings, she was an expert who could fight against the Void Flame Death Emperor and the Holy Mountain's Radiant Buddha. Did she need to put a 6 Tribulation Immortal Emperor in her eyes? Besides, it's still unknown whether this old fogey can survive the pursuit of the Golden Flame ancestral token's guardian spirit. Even if he can survive and return to the Stone Flame ancestral token, he will certainly be severely injured and on the verge of death. Without resting for more than 100,000 years, it will be very difficult for him to recover to his peak state. Hee hee. Do you think it's that easy to recover from the injuries of an immortal emperor, especially when he was injured by the Golden Flame ancestral token? Take a look at the 100-Flower Emperor. Even if Meng Baixiong is lucky enough to survive, the injuries he suffered will not be any lighter than the 100-Flower ancestral token. In fact, it will only be more troublesome. Shriek. In the vast sky behind him, a large group of yellow spring birds were constantly approaching him. Previously, they did not dare to approach him because they were afraid of Meng Baixiong's ferocious aura. Now that Meng Baixiong had already left, these birds began to chase after him again. They are really annoying. What should I do? Should I stay here for 6 hours and wait for my cultivation base to recover? Then, I'll help you kill all of these living beings of Yellow Spring. Tu Huang knitted his brows impatiently. Forget it. I don't want to fight against the Immortal King Realm ferocious beasts of the living beings of Yellow Spring for 6 hours when I'm severely injured. Let's just leave the Fire Spirit Tower. Leave? How? Catch another living being of Yellow Spring and ride on it. This one seems to be crippled. Tu Huang kicked the corpse of the heavenly dog on the ground a few times. The leader of the heavenly dog that carried them seemed to have crashed into Meng Baixiong's wall of magic power and died. No. It's just pretending to be dead. This heavenly dog sure has extraordinary spiritual intelligence. It actually knows how to pretend to be dead. Interesting. Ning Fan followed Tu Huang's example and kicked the heavenly dog's corpse. Unlike Tu Huang's weak kick, Ning Fan's kick was very heavy. It was extremely heavy. He did not deliberately use his ancient devil power, but it still made a certain dog that was pretending to be dead on the ground let out a miserable cry and got up from the ground. Oh. This heavenly dog is actually pretending to be dead. With my eyesight, I actually couldn't see through it. Hee hee. In terms of its ability to pretend to be dead, this dog is definitely at the immortal emperor realm. It's not easy for you to see through it. Not bad. Tu Huang clicked his tongue and praised. It was unknown whether he was praising Ning Fan's eyesight or praising the heavenly dog for being so good at pretending to be dead. The pursuit of the living beings of Yellow Spring was getting closer and closer. Ning Fan did not want to waste any more time. He woke up the heavenly dog that was pretending to be dead and left the place. First, he schemed against the Well of Troubles. Then, he schemed against Meng Baixiong. It could be said that the reason why Ning Fan could survive two great calamities consecutively was because of his meticulous planning. The series of meticulous arrangements consumed a lot of his mental strength. The illusion technique that trapped Meng Baixiong in the end had almost drained all of his mental strength. Currently, Ning Fan was extremely exhausted and needed a rest urgently. This was also the reason why he was unwilling to waste any more time in this place. If it wasn't because of this, he wouldn't mind going to some more maps of the Fire Spirit Tower in the last few days to gain more points. It was already the 28th day of the illusory test. The entrance of the Fire Spirit Tower had already been opened. Most of the participants had already left in advance. Even the few who had yet to leave were mostly on their way to the first floor. The illusory test would last for a month. After the end of the test, all the tribes that failed to leave the Fire Spirit Tower on time would have their results nullified. As such, arranging the time of departure reasonably was also one of the most important parts of the illusory test. Ning Fan rode on the heavenly dog and flew away from the Fire Spirit Tower. With the heavenly dog on his back, it was naturally much easier than traveling barefoot. The journey that took a few days to arrive at the tower usually only took 10 breaths of time to leave. It didn't take long for them to arrive at the entrance of the first floor of the tower. On the other hand, the pursuit of the living beings of Yellow Spring along the way had scared the guts of many participants. When we get out of the Fire Spirit Tower, those living beings of Yellow Spring won't chase after us anymore. I really didn't expect that I didn't recover my cultivation base until the end of this trip. Instead, I had to rely on you to help me along the way. With your results, you should be able to become the champion of the second round of the Mausoleum Seizing competition. Besides, as far as I know, if your results in the illusory test reach a certain level, you can also be rewarded by the Sacred Ancestor just like in the power test. With your results, I wonder what kind of reward you can get from the Sacred Ancestor. Tu Huang stroked his hair that was messed up by the wind and said with a sweet smile. Can I get another reward from the Sacred Ancestor? That's really good news. Ning Fan smiled as well. He had paid a huge price in this trip, but his rewards were also not small. All in all, it could be considered as a satisfactory ending. The heavenly dog obeyed the order and landed on the ground. Ning Fan and Tu Huang arrived at the stone door of the first floor. This stone door would open when someone passes by it. If no one passes through it, it would close. Before Ning Fan, there was also a participant from a tribe who passed through the stone door. However, when Ning Fan arrived at the stone door, something happened for some unknown reason. He was already close to the stone door, but it did not open on its own. When he tried to push the stone door, he felt a sealing force that was comparable to that of an immortal emperor coming from the stone door. It shook Ning Fan so much that the blood and qi in his chest churned. He had to take a few steps back before he could regain his balance. Ning Fan immediately frowned. Someone has done something to the stone door. It seems like it won't allow us to open it. Tu Huang carefully observed the stone door and came to a conclusion. Who could have done this? I don't know. I can only tell that there is an immortal emperor outside the Fire Soul Tower secretly casting a spell to stop us from leaving. This qi is neither Meng Baixiong nor Emperor Lu Tuo who has a grudge against you. Hee hee. It's actually the immortal emperor of the Holy Mountain who is trying to deal with you. I'm really curious about how you offended the immortal emperor of the Holy Mountain. Looking at the time, the Holy Mountain's mausoleum is about to reopen. However, before the illusory test, it will always be closed. You shouldn't have the chance to offend the immortal emperor of the Holy Mountain. The immortal emperor of the Holy Mountain? Ning Fan was surprised. Then, he smiled coldly. No one knew what he was thinking. The pursuers of the Yellow Spring were still closing in on them. Ning Fan did not plan to waste any more time at this place. There was no doubt that there was an immortal emperor's sealing power on the stone door. However, it was not difficult for Ning Fan to break the seal. It was just a mere sealing. Compared to fighting Meng Baixiong head-on, it was much easier. Ning Fan flicked his sleeve and shot out rays of golden light with great momentum at the stone door. Each ray of golden light basically hit the weak point of the seal on the stone door, causing the flow of the power of the seal to gradually slow down. In the end, it even came to a standstill. With a cracking sound, the stone door was opened by Ning Fan. The two of them left the Fire Soul Tower in a flash. The living beings of the Yellow Spring who were far away could only watch Ning Fan leave. They roared furiously. Their roars were filled with unwillingness. They could not chase after them to the outside of the Fire Soul Tower. They actually let the criminal who trespassed into the Yellow Spring escape. It was a great dereliction of duty. Roar! The roars of beasts spread in all directions. Suddenly, some of the living beings of the Yellow Spring who arrived late found a place to vent their anger. They noticed a certain dog who was lying on the ground and pretending to be dead. That damn traitor! If it wasn't because it carried Ning Fan all the way, how could he have escaped? It was impossible for them to chase after Ning Fan, but it was possible to kill the traitor. Hundreds and thousands of living beings of the Yellow Spring locked onto a certain leader of the Heavenly Dog with killing intent. The leader of the Heavenly Dog shuddered in fear and directly jumped up from the ground. It was not arrogant enough to resist the attacks of thousands of its companions. If it stays in the Fire Soul Tower, only death awaits it. So, I can only escape from the Fire Soul Tower. However, once it escapes from the Fire Soul Tower and goes far away from the Yellow Spring, it would be considered as betraying the Yellow Spring, the Heavenly Dog clan and the contract. Will it die or betray the clan? Do I still need to think about it? Howl. The leader of the Heavenly Dog decisively chose to betray the clan. Without a shred of integrity, it slipped out of the stone door and went to follow its new master. Behind it, countless disdainful roars of its companions could be heard. Chapter 1055. It was already the 28th day of the trial. There were still 27 hours before the end of the trial. On the surface, in the middle of the square of the Great Light Temple, dozens of muscular martial monks slowly carried out a 30-meter-high stone sundial. The sundial was a common timekeeping tool used by the Great Bay people. After the sundial was put in place, there were professional monks beside it to count the time. As early as 16 hours ago, the entrance of the Fire Spirit Tower was opened. Those cultivators who walked out of the Fire Spirit Tower had all been transported back to the square and handed over the maps of each tribe to the Great Light Temple. Since the result of the trial was related to the number of lit maps, it was quite troublesome to calculate the results. The lit areas on the map were usually irregular in shape. Therefore, it was necessary to precisely measure the area on the map in order to calculate the exact score of each tribe. During the calculation process, the results of each tribe would not be announced to the public. The first tribe to return from the Fire Spirit Tower was the Valley tribe. They had returned 16 hours ago, and only 7 of them had returned alive. After handing over the map, the 7 of them came to a place near the Sun Rule and meditated, waiting for the test to end. After the Valley tribe, another 18 tribes came back one after another. Most of them only had a few people left. Some of them only had 11 or 12 people left. After handing over the maps, they meditated in front of the sundial and waited. The Mirage Sea tribe and the Sea Witch tribe came back at the same time. Only these 2 tribes had the least number of people, which made the audience gasp in admiration. I didn't expect the trial to be so dangerous. The tribes that have returned have lost a lot of people. Lady Wu Yen of the Sea Wizard tribe is still the best. Under her leadership, the Sea Wizard tribe didn't lose many people. Even the Illusory Sea tribe that formed a team with her didn't lose many people. It can be seen that choosing teammates in the illusory trial is a very important matter. The other tribes with immortal venerables should be similar to the Sea Witch tribe. They did not lose many people. But it's a bit strange. What's strange? Your bone age is less than 1,000 years. You haven't seen the previous trials, so you don't know. In the previous trials, on the 28th day, more than 70% of the tribes would choose to leave the Fire Spirit Tower in advance. About 10% of the tribes would continue to stay in the Fire Spirit Tower and return on the 29th and 30th day. The remaining 20% of the tribe was completely annihilated in the Fire Soul Tower, never to return to the surface. This time, it's different. So far, the number of tribes that have returned to the surface seems to be a little. Out of the 108 tribes, only 19 have returned. Maybe most of the tribes are still in the Fire Soul Tower to increase their scores. Furthermore, up until now, only Lord Wu Yan, an immortal venerable, has returned. The other immortal venerables have yet to return. I wonder when the Stone Man Division's Lord Sherdang will return and what kind of results he has obtained. I have placed a heavy bet on the Stone Man Division. I believe that under Lord Sherdang's leadership, the Stone Man Division will definitely be able to enter the top 3. I've also placed a heavy bet. However, it's on the Qi Feng tribe. I'm very confident in Master Hong Zhang's strength. You should know that Master Hong Zhang is in the same team as that Sha Bai Lu. How could his results be bad? I wonder who will come back alive between Bai Lu and the Outer Cultivator. It's been almost a month. The two of them must have died in the Fire Spirit Tower. That Outer Cultivator's result is so amazing. The one who will come back alive will most likely be him. My good brother, you can't just look at the surface. Maybe Bai Lu will come back alive. A head-on battle and the result of the test are two different concepts. I've placed a heavy bet on Bai Lu coming back alive. You have to help me pray that Bai Lu will win. Some of the residents of Lioli City who didn't know what was going on were chatting and laughing. Some came to take a glance and then left. It was impossible for everyone to stay here and wait for the result of the test to be announced. The test lasted for a long time. For a whole month, most of the residents of Lioli City still had to go to work, eat and sleep. Only the true cultivators were waiting here. For these people, a month's time was just a small meditation. It didn't feel like a long time. On the high platform, the immortals and Buddhas were either meditating or discussing Tao. Most of them were waiting calmly. Only when a tribe returned from the Fire Spirit Tower would these experts look at the sun at the center of the square. Compared to the final winner of the test, these immortals and Buddhas were more concerned about the battle between Bai Lu and Ning Fan. Be it Wu Yan, Hong Zhang, or even Sherdang of the Stoneman tribe, all of them were a little dull compared to the two of them. There must be a life and death battle between the two of them. Only one of them could come back alive. Of course, it was also possible that both of them would perish together and neither of them could come back alive. On Emperor Lu Tuo's seat, some disciples would raise similar questions to him from time to time. Master, do you think senior brother Bai Lu will be able to take that outer cultivator's life? Master, is senior brother Bai Lu coming back soon? Master. Senior brother Bai Lu, Master, Great Emperor Lu Tuo's expression was calm. He closed his eyes and meditated. His disciples did not know that Bai Lu was already dead, but he did. He felt a little worried about his own gains and losses. Bai Lu actually failed and was killed by Ning Fan. When he thought that Ning Fan was still playing around in the Fire Spirit Tower at this moment, he frowned slightly. However, that was all, hee. It's also a good thing that Ning Fan could win, isn't it? However, he managed to get rid of Bai Lu through Ning Fan's hands. Isn't this another kind of gain? Emperor Lu Tuo turned a deaf ear to his disciples' questions. He refused to answer them and just remained silent. Sometimes, the corners of his mouth would reveal an inscrutable smile. None of the experts on the seats knew what Emperor Lu Tuo was smiling about. Only Buddha Ter Emperor narrowed his eyes and cursed Emperor Lu Tuo inwardly for being shameless. What a treacherous old man. I really didn't expect this. It seems like his real intention is to get someone else to do his dirty work. When he sensed Bai Lu's death just now, he clearly showed a look of shock and anger. However, he didn't expect that it was just an act. His smile was actually the real one. Could it be that the other half of the ominous jade fire spirit was purposely lost to me in order to put on a show? I'm afraid this old man had already planned this from the first time he found trouble with that external cultivator. What a pity. It would be better if Bai Lu wasn't eliminated. Emperor Lu Tua seemed to have sensed Buddha Tier Emperor's gaze. He turned his head and gave him an inscrutable smile while transmitting his voice to him. Hee. After the second round of the mausoleum seizing competition ends, I will hand over half of the ominous jade fire spirit to fellow Daoist. However, there's one thing I have to remind fellow Daoist. That half of my ominous jade fire spirit isn't easy to tame. There are quite a lot of drawbacks. Fellow Daoist, you're worrying too much. I'm quite confident about taming the fire spirit. I'm not afraid of the drawbacks. However, I didn't expect that fellow Daoist could still be in such a good mood after losing the ominous jade fire spirit and losing your disciple. Moreover, your plan to kill that external cultivator had failed time and time again. Humph. What a scheming mind. I've really underestimated you in the past. Buddha Tier Emperor's eyes turned slightly gloomy under his mask. Hee. I've never dared to underestimate fellow Daoist. I gathered Hong Zong and the others and gathered a large group of people to attack the people of the 100 Blossoms sect in the Fire Spirit Tower. Even though I schemed against the 100 Blossoms sect in the past, I didn't go too far. After all, that scheme was just to confirm some things. Fellow Daoist, on the other hand, actually hid it from the world and attacked secretly. You almost put the 100 Blossoms sect in a dead end and pushed all the blame to me, making me and the 100 Blossoms sect incompatible like fire and water. Hee. In terms of scheming, I admit that I'm not as good as fellow Daoist. Emperor Lu Tuo's face revealed a faint smile. That smile was too dazzling. It made Buddha Tier Emperor burn with anger. He was about to explode, but in the end, he just smiled faintly and endured it. Buddha Tier Emperor's eyes became even more gloomy. Obviously, he did not expect Emperor Lu Tua to know so much about his actions. This old thing even pretended not to know about Venerable Master Hong Zhang's abilities. His acting was really good. He even knew that I secretly bribed Hong Zhang. Humph. As expected. The smile on his face right now was the old thing's true face. All his previous words and actions were just a disguise. Even his hatred towards Ning Fan was probably just a disguise as well. All of these were actually just this old thing's plan to kill me with a borrowed knife. You seem to be very proud of yourself. Are you proud that your plan to kill me with a borrowed knife succeeded and got rid of the reincarnated spiritual body that the dead emperor left beside you? I'm just afraid that all your schemes are actually within the dead emperor's expectations. You still can't escape death in the end. Even if you feel proud now, it's all for naught. Buddha Tier Emperor said coldly. Hee. It doesn't matter whether I feel proud or not. Fellow Daoist won't be able to feel proud anymore. This Wu Yen came back alive, but fellow Daoist subordinates haven't returned yet. Most likely, they have died in the Fire Soul Tower. I heard that fellow Daoist has generously rewarded Hong Zhang with a lot of ancient Buddha Dao fruits. TSK. Even if I want to eat a complete Dao fruit, I would have to pay a huge price. I wonder who has so many ancient Buddha Dao fruits now. Perhaps, they have already been eaten by the 100 Blossoms Emperor's subordinates. All for naught. It's you, isn't it? You're just a loser. Humph. Buddha Tier Emperor snorted coldly. His murderous aura suddenly swept towards Buddha Tier Emperor. Not to be outdone, Buddha Tier Emperor waved his long sleeve and instantly shattered Buddha Tier Emperor's murderous aura. His aura was actually not weaker than Buddha Tier Emperor's at all. The sky was instantly torn apart due to the confrontation between the two immortal emperors. Thunderclaps shook the clouds. It was the Emperor's wrath thunder welcoming phenomenon that only belonged to the great humble clan. Your foundation has clearly been destroyed. You should be a weak 6 tribulation immortal emperor, but you can actually withstand my aura. You've really hidden yourself well. You actually managed to deceive everyone without anyone knowing. Could it be that the destruction of your foundation is also fake? Buddha Ter Emperor said coldly. He. It's true that my foundation has been destroyed. It's also true that I'm a weak 6 tribulation immortal emperor. However, to withstand your weak aura, I don't need a strong cultivation base. Are you very strong? You're courting death. If you have the ability, then kill me. Don't try to threaten me with words. The entire Great Light Temple was shocked by the sudden confrontation between the two immortal emperors. 100 Blossom Emperor's injuries were too severe. She only released some of her divine abilities to block the aftermath of the battle between the two immortal emperors. That was considered to be protecting the people around her. She had no intention of interfering. Bone's Spirit Emperor had the ability to interfere, but he didn't. He just watched from the side with his eyes wide open. He was shocked by the fact that Buddha Ter Emperor and Luo Tuo were evenly matched. One should know that Buddha Ter Emperor was publicly recognized as the second strongest among the 5 emperors of Middle Prefecture. Meanwhile, Lu Tuo should only be ranked 4th. He was far inferior to Buddha Ter Emperor. However, they were evenly matched now. Everyone had underestimated Emperor Luo Tuo's hidden strength. Only Emperor Tian Du's eyes flickered slightly. He raised his hand and instantly generated a fierce wind that interrupted the battle between the two. He said solemnly, "If you want to fight, find a place to fight after the second round is over. Don't forget where this is. It's not a place where you two can behave atrociously." This was the Great Light Temple. It was the Light Buddha's dojo. When he thought of this, Buddha Ter Emperor finally felt a hint of fear. He let out a cold snort and withdrew his hand. Emperor Luo Tuo also withdrew his hand. However, after he withdrew his hand, he spat out a green fireball and cut it in half before handing it to Buddha Ter Emperor. Then, he glanced at the direction of a dark cloud in the sky and smiled mysteriously. It seems like there's going to be a good show next. Unfortunately, I don't plan to watch it anymore. He actually brought his disciples and left the place. Everyone was shocked. Why did Emperor Luo Tuo leave with a smile? Why did he say those words? Could it be that he doesn't care about the battle between Bai Lu and the external cultivator? Or could it be that he was too confident in his disciples' ability to kill Bai Lu and did not want to wait until the end of the illusory test? No one knew what Emperor Luo Tuo was thinking. He just left the place just like that. All that was left for the audience to speculate endlessly and for Buddha Ter Emperor to obtain half of the ominous jade fire spirit. Buddha Ter Emperor looked at the green fireball in his hand with a gloomy expression. Inside the fireball, there was the shadow of half a green fire bird. That was the half of the ominous jade fire spirit that he and Emperor Luo Tuo had agreed on. Even though he had won against Emperor Luo Tuo, he could not feel happy at all. I see. No wonder he was willing to lose this item to me. Earlier, he even pretended to be reluctant and unwilling to give it to me. He was so real. He's really a cunning person. Humph. After letting out a cold snort, Buddha Ter Emperor kept the half of the ominous jade fire spirit. All of his disciples asked him about what happened. However, Buddha Ter Emperor, who was in a bad mood, shouted coldly at them, causing them to cough out blood. They kept quiet out of fear and no longer dared to ask any more questions. No one knew what kind of dispute had happened between Buddha Ter Emperor and Emperor Luo Tuo that made them fight each other. It's good that this old thing has left, Zhang Yu heaved a sigh of relief inwardly. After all, she was the culprit who destroyed Emperor Luo Tuo's foundation. As long as Emperor Luo Tuo was present, she would more or less feel some pressure. Emperor Luo Tuo's existence was like a small boulder in her heart. Although this boulder had been relieved, there was still a bigger boulder that she had yet to let go. Why hasn't that little thief returned yet? Could it be that he died in the hands of that so-called Sha Bai Lu? No. How is that possible? If that little thief dies, I will also die because of the divine spirit sealing formation of the royal clan, but why hasn't he returned yet? Surely, something must have happened to him in the Fire Soul Tower. Zhang Yu, who would never admit that she was worried about Ning Fan, could not help but frown. Ouyang Nuan was also worried. If Ning Fan did not accompany her on this trip to the Supreme Pill Sacred Region, she certainly would not dare to enter the inner area. She had witnessed the scenery of the Great Humble Clan and many unique pill refinement techniques of the clan. Moreover, she had even touched the bottleneck of the 9 Revolutions Golden Core realm because of this trip. As long as she accumulates more time, she would one day reach the 9 Revolutions Golden Core realm. Her husband had helped her so much, but he had also caused a lot of trouble along the way. If something happens to her husband in the Great Humble Clan, she would feel guilty and blame herself even if it was not because of her. Old Wu, on the other hand, was not that worried about Ning Fan. Instead, he took out all of his belongings and went to one gambling house after another, placing all kinds of bets related to Ning Fan. Ning Fan gets first place in the illusory test. 1-5. Ning Fan gets first place in both the strength and illusory tests. 1-5. Ning Fan successfully kills Sha Bai Lu. 1-2. Ning Fan scores more than 50,000 points in the illusory test. 1-5. Ning Fan scores more than 100,000 points in the illusory test. 1-10. Ning Fan scores more than 1 million points in the illusory test. 1-100. He had 120% confidence in his master. He even chose to bet such a ridiculous bet of 1 million points without hesitation. He would definitely earn it. Master would always be omnipotent, and Master would always be invincible. The loyal Wu Xiaoba absolutely believed in his master's ability. Countless people of the Great Humble Clan noticed old Wu's random bet and sighed with emotion. When some of the insiders pointed out old Wu's identity, the rest of them seemed to understand his original intention and began to praise him. This is a loyal servant. Even if he will definitely lose the bet, as long as it is related to his master, he will firmly bet on his master without any hesitation. With such a servant, what else can I ask for? 500,000 points, 1 million points. You should know that in the countless illusory tests in the past, there were only 2 matches where the winner scored more than 500,000 points. There has never been a case where the winner scored more than 1 million points. It is impossible to win money by betting like this. Madam, you don't understand. This servant is not trying to win money, he is trying to support his master. No, big brother, you are the one who doesn't understand. He must have a deep trust in his master. That kind of trust has nothing to do with winning or losing. It is a kind of feeling, a kind of persistence. Although there are millions of people, I only believe in you. Although this old Wu looks a little ugly, his soul is incomparably noble and sacred. I am a little moved by him. Also, I am not a madam, I am still a virgin, hee. A certain middle-aged woman who claimed to be a virgin threw a coquettish glance at old Wu's back and picked her nose. She pursed her lips and revealed a sweet smile with her buck teeth. Old Wu, who did not know that he had the luck of love, felt a chill for no reason. After thinking for a while, he did not seem to have done anything wrong that would incur the wrath of the heavens. It should not be a sign of the evil star's revenge. Thus, he went back to gamble with a clear conscience. Following the departure of Emperor Luo Tua, the storm subsided. The Great Light Temple once again regained its harmonious atmosphere with singing and dancing. No one felt that there was anything wrong with this calm. Only Xian Yuchun, who was holding up a banner of support, frowned and looked towards the sky filled with dark clouds. What is going on with this atmosphere of impending rain? These dark clouds that shrouded Luli City, is it going to rain again? At the center of the dark clouds, there seems to be something hiding. What is it? Xian Yuchun did not know that the location of the dark clouds he was looking at was the same location that Emperor Luo Tua was looking at when he left. He looked at it repeatedly, but he could not find anything wrong with the dark clouds at all. He just felt that the dark clouds were a little scary for no reason. Suddenly, countless exclamations of surprise came from all directions. Xianyu Chun looked towards the direction where the cheers came from and saw Ning Fan's blood-stained white robes appearing in everyone's line of sight. Beside Ning Fan on the public square was a young lady in green robes who was wearing an eye patch. She seemed to be a member of the illusory sea tribe. However, it was unknown why she was following Ning Fan like glue. Xianyu Chun's eyes immediately lit up. He was not the only one. Ouyang Nuan, Zhang Yu, and the others were also filled with joy at the same time because Ning Fan had returned safely. Ning Fan had returned. In other words, the one who died in the duel between him and Sha Bailu was Sha Bailu. Ha! I won the bet. Damn it. I actually guessed wrongly. My 10 taels of gold. I can't believe it was this young man who won. Just as I expected. He really won. I wonder what his final result in the illusory test is. This external cultivator seems to be heavily injured. Sounds of discussions could be heard everywhere. However, these discussions obviously could not disturb Ning Fan's mind at all. He just nodded at Ouyang Nuan and Zhang Yu who were on the high platform to let them know that he was safe. Then, he went to submit the map to be tabulated. After that, he and Tu Huang sat cross-legged and meditated near the sun, just like the other participants who came before them. You're actually wearing an eye patch. Did you prepare it beforehand? So you also care about your appearance. Indeed, it's not very good to have a blind eye exposed. Ning Fan glanced at Tu Huang speechlessly and transmitted his voice to him. At this moment, Tu Huang was dressed in green robes and wore an emerald eye patch. Even though he was missing an eye, it did not look blemished or out of place at all. Instead, it made him look cute and playful like a young lady wearing an eye patch. Even though he was missing an eye, he could still add points to his appearance. Ning Fan only admired Tu Huang. Good to look at. You're wrong. This eye patch is not for good looks. You haven't returned my left eye to me yet, have you? With this eye patch, no one will be able to see the forbidden technique I used in my empty eye socket. The devil eye self-sacrifice technique is a kind of rare ability of the devil Dao. It's quite related to the flame ancestor of the great humble race. If it's discovered by others in this place, it will more or less be a little troublesome. However, I'm very happy that you said that I'm good looking. Do I really look good like this? Otherwise, I'll just wear it like this from now on. It's fine even if I don't have my left eye. Tu Huang flipped his hand and took out a bronze mirror. He looked at himself in an extremely narcissistic manner and then kept the bronze mirror with a hint of disdain. Do I really look good? I don't think so. As expected, this young man's taste is a little different from others. TSK. A young man with strange taste. I like it. Speaking of which, when are you going to return my left eye to me? Haven't you engraved the past that I want into it yet? Your past is too vast and there are too many things that I need to engrave into it. It will take a lot of time. When this matter is over, I will engrave a copy of what I saw into your left eye and return it to you. Then, I will wait for you with this ugly eye patch on. By the way, be careful. There are people on the clouds from the holy mountain. I also noticed it. It should be the person who cast a technique on the stone door to stop me from leaving the fire spirit tower. Ning Fan's eyes turned slightly serious. From the beginning to the end, he did not raise his head to look at the strange dark clouds. However, it did not mean that he did not know that there was an immortal emperor realm existence hiding there. Is it an enemy? Or perhaps, the act of obstructing me was just a test. Since I don't know who the enemy is, I can't act recklessly for the time being. I should end the second round of the mausoleum seizing first. With the result that I obtained in the illusory test, I will definitely become the champion. The spring water of the South Sea will be mine for sure. When the time comes, I will give 1 share to the 100 Flower Emperor and the rest to Great Emperor Ancient Chaos and Emperor Sha. Then, I will look for the 9 civet sacrificial vessel and the innate soul-nourishing spiritual herbs. It's a pity that I can't use the time treasure box that you gave me for the time being. There are still remnants of the restrictive power on the box. It's too strong. It's the work of a third-step expert. With my current cultivation base, I won't be able to suppress it at all. I can only wait for it to dissipate by itself. It will take at least a few months before I can use it again. In that case, if the immortal emperor of the holy mountain who is hiding in the clouds is really an enemy, I'm afraid it will be a little troublesome. I will have one less way to protect myself. Ning Fan said with a frown. Don't be afraid. That person is just a 7 tribulation immortal emperor. He is not my match. As long as I leave the fire spirit pagoda, I will be able to unleash my full strength. I will definitely protect you today. Not to mention a 7 tribulation immortal emperor, even if all the immortal emperors of the holy mountain come out, I will protect you. I won't let you touch a single butterfly phosphorus powder. Thud. Tu Huang and Ning Fan's faces were filled with surprise. I won't let you touch even a speck of butterfly phosphorus powder. What do you mean? Even Tu Huang himself couldn't understand why he would say such a thing. It was as if he just blurted it out without thinking. It was as if he had said the same thing in the past. Ning Fan's heart was filled with billowing waves. It was as if there was something that was knocking on the door of his heart with all its might. It was as if he had heard these words once many, many years ago. It was as if there was something that was very close to him but he could not think of it, touch it, or return to it. You know that I am a butterfly? Ning Fan took a deep breath to calm himself down and asked. You are a butterfly? What do you mean? Tu Huang's only big eye widened, expressing his bewilderment and puzzlement. Nothing. I just feel that what you said is a little strange. Ning Fan did not explain much and just brushed it off. That's right. Ever since I started dreaming about the true world, I would often talk nonsense. Sometimes, I would even suddenly have an indescribable feeling of sadness. I would die without any reason, cry without any reason, or miss a little fellow whose identity I don't even know. Actually, I have already mentally prepared myself for many things. My existence is highly likely to be an illusion created by someone. I'm not real. I'm just an illusion. Not only me, the existences of many people in the despicable clan are just illusions. For example, the 100-flower Empress. These are the things that I want to confirm on this trip, but it's not all. I want to find the reason for my tears. I want to find the source of that sadness. I want to find that little fellow. I keep having this feeling that I've been waiting for him for a very long time. It's not just for one lifetime but for many lifetimes. I want to know who he is. When you return my left eye to me, I might be able to find the answer from my past memories. Or maybe I can't. Tu Huang let out a faint sigh. Given her personality, it was really hard to imagine that she would sigh like this. For some unknown reason, this sigh made Ning Fan feel a little familiar but also a little strange. It made him a little touched and a little hesitant at the same time. Up until now, he only had a little good impression of Tu Huang. That feeling was far from reaching the level of liking and adoration. However, at this moment, he did not know why, but he had a feeling of wanting to embrace Tu Huang in his arms. He wanted to smooth away the wrinkles between her brows. He could not explain it clearly. It was like the strings of a zither playing in his heart, cutting his heart. It was also like thousands of nets being cast into the river, trying to catch the reflection of the moon in the water. However, in the end, it was all for naught. Your heart is in a mess. When you went to the Yellow Spring, your heart was not in a mess. When you were being chased by tens of thousands of beasts, your heart was not in a mess. When Meng Baixiong appeared, your heart was still in a mess. Even when the immortal emperor of the Saint Mountain was beside you, your heart was still in a mess. Interesting. I really want to know the reason why a heart of stone like you would actually be in a mess. The haze in Tu Huang's heart was suddenly swept away and he asked Ning Fan with great interest. Because of your sigh, my heart is in a mess, damn it. Ning Fan knew that he would never say such shameless words. At the same time, he deeply believed that all the things in the world that he could not understand had their own reasons. There must be a reason why Tu Huang gave him such a strange feeling. And because of this reason, he actually had the desire to get to the bottom of it. After this matter is over, I'll investigate it properly. That feeling is definitely not an illusion. It's impossible for it to be a baseless rumor. The feeling that the despicable clan gave him was like a dense fog. It was very, very bad. It seemed real and fake at the same time. Consuming pills, healing his wounds, regulating his breathing, the crisis had yet to be completely resolved. The great enemy was still nearby and their hostility was still unknown. Ning Fan had to adjust his condition to the best to deal with any possible situations that might arise. Even though Tu Huang was willing to protect him, he was more willing to believe in his own strength. It was not that he did not trust Tu Huang. It was just his personality. Throughout his journey, he had always been supporting the sky with his own strength. Thus, he had long been used to doing things in such a manner. Another 6 hours passed. Finally, it was the 29th day. During these 6 hours, only 5 tribes left the Fire Spirit Tower after Ning Fan. On the 29th day, only 3 tribes left the Fire Spirit Tower and returned. On the 30th day, none of the tribes returned. According to the detection, there was no longer any chi of the participants in the Fire Spirit Tower. Only the chi of the participants on the square were left. In total, only 28 tribes returned from the Fire Spirit Tower. When they left, there were 108. But when they returned, there were only 28. A total of 80 tribes were completely annihilated in the Fire Spirit Tower. Besides, Sha Bai Lu was not the only one who did not return. Shi Dang and Hong Zong did not return either. None of the peak thought-breaking realm cultivators who were more famous among the thought-breaking realm cultivators returned. What happened? Of course, it was Ning Fan's doing. Just now, Hong Zong and Shi Dang somehow gathered more than 1,000 cultivators to besiege Wu Yan and deal with him. Unfortunately, those people were all killed by him. Ning Fan did not know how many of the 80 tribes were annihilated by him. However, he was certain that most of them were killed by him. He, Tu Huang, Wu Yan and the others also knew about it. However, the others did not know about it. As a result, the discussions in the entire Great Brightness Temple became louder and noisier. Even the experts on the high platform were shocked. It was definitely the first time that an illusory trial had such a high death rate. Several immortal venerables had actually fallen. Even though the illusory trial encouraged people to fight for the map and kill each other, the tribes would always meet each other. Thus, they would not go too far and would at least leave some leeway. Only those tribes that had a deep grudge against each other would not kill each other. Most of the people who died were killed by the illusory technique of the Fire Spirit Tower. Logically speaking, it should be like this. However, in this illusory trial, not only did Sha Bai Lu die, but also Shi Dang and Hong Zong, the 2 great immortal venerables, were also killed. Moreover, the teams of 80 tribes were annihilated. This is definitely not normal. Countless people began to make guesses. Countless eyes were looking at Wu Yan and some of the stronger peak thought fragmentation realm experts. However, in the end, all of their gazes fell on Ning Fan. Even if the others had the ability to cause such a large-scale massacre, they would not be foolish enough to do such a thing. After all, those who died in the Fire Spirit Tower were the elites of each tribe. Among them, there were many who were favored by the 5 emperors of the Middle State. Moreover, these people did not seem to have the ability to kill the 80 teams including Shi Dang. Even Wu Yan, the immortal venerables, could not do it. There were only 2 considerations for a madman who could kill unscrupulously in all directions. The madman who killed Bai Lu. Or, the rumored bold external cultivator who even dared to offend Emperor Lu Tuo. Countless gazes gathered on Ning Fan. There were also countless spirit sense of experts that spread out from outside the Great Brightness Temple and locked onto Ning Fan. Among these spirit sense, there were immortal venerables and immortal kings. All of them were the strongest experts of each tribe in the Great Bay Grassland. Among those cultivators who did not return, many of them were their disciples. If they confirmed that Ning Fan was the one who killed these people, they would definitely not let him go after the incident. Even though he was being locked on by countless experts who were hiding in the dark, Ning Fan's expression did not change at all. He was the one who killed those people. Since they wanted to deal with him, he fought back. What was wrong with that? If he was not strong enough, he would die. If he was the one who died, these people would feel guilty and blame themselves. No way. If someone were to ask him if he was the culprit, he would not even bother to deny it. Unfortunately, no one asked. If the 5 emperors of the Middle State did not say anything, how would the others dare to interfere with the normal progress of the second round of the mausoleum seizing battle? The mausoleum seizing battle was a sacred event. It was said that even the immortal emperors of the Saint Mountain could not simply interfere with this matter. Otherwise, they would be severely punished. Because of this, even though Ning Fan was afraid of the immortal emperor who was hiding behind the dark clouds, he did not think that the immortal emperor would risk violating the rules of the mausoleum seizing battle by attacking him at this place. As for those tribes that did not even have an immortal emperor, even if they knew that Ning Fan was the culprit, which of them would dare to attack him in the Great Brightness Temple? The occasion was not right. The timing was not right. However, it did not mean that they would not pursue this matter further. When this matter is over and Ning Fan leaves the Great Brightness Temple and Lioli City, they would have plenty of opportunities to interrogate him. A debt of blood would most likely be paid with blood. You really have a lot of troubles. But don't worry. I will protect you. Tu Huang patted his chest and said confidently through telepathy. If you are willing to help me, I will really be relieved. However, Emperor Lu Tua is not here. Did he leave in advance? Ning Fan was indifferent to the countless spirit senses that were locked onto him. What he was concerned about was the empty seat of Emperor Lu Tua on the high platform. That Emperor Lu Tua who wanted to kill him wholeheartedly was not here. Did he have complete confidence in his disciple? Was he waiting for the good news of Sha Bai Lu at home? However, when Ning Fan used the mind-reading technique to secretly gather information, he saw a very puzzling message in the minds of some of the female audience members. Emperor Lu Tua had just left not long before he walked out of the Fire Soul Tower. Before he left, he even fought with Buddha Sob Emperor because of a disagreement. In the end, he gave Buddha Sob Emperor half an innate fire spirit and left with a smile. Smile, smile, could it be that this old man Lu Tua already knows about Sha Bai Lu's death? But this still can't explain why he smiled. Unless Sha Bai Lu's death was exactly what he wanted to see. However, there's something that I can't understand. The person that old man Lu Tua wants to kill is me. The scene that he wants to see is naturally Sha Bai Lu killing me. Then, why did he leave with a smile? Could it be that the fact that Emperor Lu Tua revealed his killing intent to me along the way and made it known to the entire world, is all just a pretense? Emperor Lu Tuo's real goal is not me but, to let Sha Bai Lu die in my hands? Is there such a possibility? Ning Fan had many guesses in his mind. However, it was naturally impossible for him to verify them. Originally, he thought that the biggest trouble he would face after walking out of the Fire Soul Tower was Emperor Lu Tua. Now, however, it seemed like that was not the case. Instead, the situation was a little confusing, making it hard for him to understand. The results were finally tabulated. The illusory sea tribe of the Scarred Man obtained the third place with 400 points in the strength test and 63-34-068 points in the illusion test. Wuyan Sea Wizard Tribe won second place, with 10,500 points in the power test and 879,702 points in the illusory test. As for the Tower Wood Tribe which Ning Fan represented, they fully deserved the first place. In the strength test, they obtained 471,400 points while in the illusion test, they obtained 1,598,000 points. Even the odd points were negligible. Their total points actually exceeded 2 million. Without a doubt, the first place of the second round was none other than Ning Fan. When the emperor of the capital announced Ning Fan's ranking and results, most of the audience's jaws dropped to the ground. Only those gamblers who bet on Ning Fan were overjoyed. "I'm rich. I'm rich." Old Wu was naturally one of those people who were overjoyed. If there was someone who bet on Ning Fan the most, it would definitely be him. He was confident that the money he earned today was enough to buy half of Lioli City. Gold and silver. That's right. They were betting on the gold and silver of mortals. Ning Fan just glanced at Old Wu, who was elated outside the arena, and guessed the cause and effect. He instantly felt speechless. This guy is actually happy because he won gold and silver. In the eyes of cultivators, gold and silver are useless things. It's fine if the people of the Great Desolate like it, but Old Wu also likes it. Is he really infected by the people of the Great Desolate? Or perhaps, the gold and silver of the people of the Great Desolate are different from the gold and silver of ordinary people, and only Old Wu could see through this difference with his eyes, which are at the second level of the heaven being realm? This possibility doesn't seem high. However, if that's the case, Old Wu's passion for the gold and silver of this place can finally be found. Ning Fan's eyes flashed as if he had a plan and smiled at Old Wu's direction. Immediately, Old Wu felt a chill down his spine. He carefully kept the storage pouch that was filled with gold and silver and looked at Ning Fan's direction. Seeing that Ning Fan did not look at him at all, he immediately heaved a sigh of relief. No, it shouldn't be. This fiend has never seen the heavenly Tao gold and heavenly Tao silver before. He shouldn't be able to see that the gold and silver of the Great Desolate contained a tiny amount of the heavenly Tao's gold and silver. I'm just being paranoid. If I refine the gold and silver that I won. He. I should be able to get dozens of taels of heavenly Tao's gold and silver. He. I wonder if it's enough to set up a heavenly creation formation. And it should be enough if I set up a smaller formation. As for the rest, I'll go and buy some good stuff from the heavenly transcending sect. Wait. If I hide my fortune from this fiend, won't I be the same as before? Won't I not have changed at all? At this moment, Old Wu's heart that originally wanted to make a fortune in silence became hesitant. If Ning Fan did not risk his life to save him in the Southern Medicine Temple, he would not have such hesitation. But now, he did. That was his master, the master who risked his life to save him. I, Old Wu, am not a thing, I'm a bastard, but, the scenes in the Southern Medicine Temple kept replaying in Old Wu's mind, lingering. Old Wu angrily hammered his big head, but he could not stop those scenes from replaying in his mind. It was as if he could see the fiend who was covered in blood at this moment, seriously injured and dying. This fiend's injuries are a bit serious. He should be fine. Sigh, actually, he will also become soft-hearted. Looking at the fiend's injuries, forget it, this little bit of heavenly Tao's gold and silver should be used to buy some tonics for the fiend. Sigh, who asked him to be the world's most loyal Wu Xiaoba? Sigh, little Wu Xiaoba, you are always too soft-hearted, crying alone until dawn. Wu Xiaoba, who had also made a decision, touched his storage pouch with some reluctance and made a 30-degree crying posture while looking up at the sky. The ceremony that ended the illusory trial was carried out step by step. Ning Fan's team had actually taken all of the top 3 places, instantly becoming the hottest topic of discussion in this place. It had also created a great history in the illusory trial. There were not many tribes left in this competition. Those small tribes that only had a total of tens of thousands of points had actually obtained the top 30 places. Ning Fan and his team had set a new record for the top 3 places, while the tribes behind them had set a new record for the lowest score in the top 30 places. There were only 28 tribes left. As long as they survived, their names would be on the list. At least, those tribes that were lucky enough to be on the list were happy to see Ning Fan's action of slaughtering all 80 tribes. The awards ceremony had finally begun. Ning Fan was the first place. Naturally, he would be the first to receive the reward. He slowly walked to the high platform and stood in front of Tiandu. Tiandu's face was full of smiles as he handed over the golden storage pouch to Ning Fan. Inside the storage pouch was the reward for getting the first place in the illusory trial. With your result, you will definitely be rewarded by the divine ancestor later. Those who have scored more than 700,000 points in the illusory trial will be rewarded. I know that you have reached this stage with your own strength. However, the little girl Wu Yan is a little lucky. Obviously, she has benefited from you and shared your results. That's why she has scored more than 700,000 points. In this way, she will also be rewarded by the divine ancestor. Speaking of which, your score has already far exceeded 1 million points even after deducting the shared results. You really did enter the 6th floor, didn't you? Did you find any strange space? Don't misunderstand me. I'm just asking casually. Whether you answer or not, it's all up to you. Just asking casually. I won't believe you. Ning Fan was not stupid enough to share his trip to the Yellow Spring with Tiandu's emperor. He just said, I didn't find anything strange and received the reward. However, just as he received the golden storage pouch, he suddenly had goosebumps. Without saying anything, he threw the storage pouch away. Almost at the same time, an indescribably dazzling lightning shot out from the storage pouch like a thunderbolt, blasting the storage pouch into pieces. As soon as this thunderbolt appeared, it took away all the light in heaven and earth. Only this dazzling lightning could be seen. This thunderbolt carried the aura force of a 7 tribulation immortal emperor with all his strength. However, it was so strange that it did not seem to have any destructive power. It went straight for Ning Fan's dantian. Ning Fan immediately activated his protective golden light. However, that thunderbolt directly went through the protective golden light and the obstruction of Ning Fan's physical body. It went straight into Ning Fan's dantian without any defense. It was not an attack. Thus, he could not defend against it with normal means. The lightning twisted and struck Ning Fan's primordial spirit, breaking the punishment rings on Ning Fan's dantian one after another. It was unexpected. Ning Fan's attention had always been focused on the mysterious immortal emperor in the dark clouds. He did not expect that the storage pouch would be a trap and that there would be such a strange lightning attack hidden in it. He did not expect it. Tiandu's emperor also did not expect it. None of the people here had expected it. Obviously, this was not the emperor's intention. He had ulterior motives towards Ning Fan. How could he possibly attack Ning Fan? It was also not an attack that the emperor could make. It was a secret technique that only the Thunder Sound lineage of the Sacred Mountain knew. Thunder Sound technique. It was a secret technique that could penetrate all defenses. How dare you? So what if your Thunder Sound lineage sent out an immortal emperor of the Sacred Mountain? How dare you be so arrogant as to violate the rules of the mausoleum seizing battle and attack the champion of the second round? Do you really think that the dignity of the mausoleum seizing battle is nothing? The emperor of Tiandu was shocked and enraged. With a wave of his hand, a strong gust of wind blew away the dark clouds in the sky. What was revealed under the dark clouds was a middle-aged man with a cold expression. He was dressed in silver robes and his body was emitting an unimaginable lightning chi. Your Thunder Sound lineage must give me an explanation. Otherwise, I will certainly go to the Sacred Mountain and demand justice from the Radiance Buddha. The emperor of Tiandu shouted coldly and questioned the silver-robed man. However, what was the use of questioning him? Ning Fan's punishment rings were actually broken by the secret technique of the Thunder Sound lineage. Now that the punishment rings were broken, Ning Fan would no longer be able to stay in the Great Humble Clan no matter what. What awaited Ning Fan would be the pursuit of the immortal emperors. Perhaps he could still let Ning Fan win, but what about the other immortal emperors? There was no longer a place for Ning Fan in the Great Humble Clan. Ning Fan's heart was also filled with rage. His heart was extremely cold. He was reluctant to break the punishment rings when he was facing the Well of Troubles. He was also reluctant to break the punishment rings when he was facing Meng Baixiong. It was all because he was wary of the rules of the Great Humble Clan and restrained himself. It was not because he was afraid. He just wanted to bear the humiliation and find the sacrificial vessel of Jiu Li to treat Great Emperor Ancient Chaos injuries. He wanted to save that dying old man and slightly repay the favor he owed Great Emperor Ancient Chaos. However, someone was ruining his great plan today. The punishment rings that he was reluctant to destroy even when he was on the verge of death. The punishment rings that he was reluctant to destroy even when he was being bullied by the immortal emperors of the Great Humble Clan, destroy them ruthlessly. At the moment when the punishment rings were destroyed, millions of killing intent came from all directions of the Middle State. Obviously, they had sensed the fact that Ning Fan's punishment rings had been destroyed. The pursuit is coming. All of his plans were ruined. The thunder sound lineage of the sacred mountain, right? I don't remember having any enmity with your lineage. Why do you want to stop me? Why did you destroy my punishment rings and frame me? Give me an explanation. Ning Fan, who was just an external cultivator, actually roared at the silver-robed immortal emperor on the clouds. Frame? Didn't you, an external cultivator, remove the punishment rings on your own? Explanation. Why do I need to explain to you? Hee hee. If you can survive this pursuit, you can come to me for an explanation if you have the ability to cut your sword into my sleeves one day. Look, the person who wants to kill you is here. The silver-robed immortal emperor looked down at Ning Fan with disdain. The experts on the scene were initially shocked by the drastic change in this place. But soon after, a soul voice came from the distant sacred mountain. It conveyed an order to all the people of the Great Humble Clan regardless of their cultivation base. Kill Ning Fan. Kill Ning Fan at all costs. That soul voice did not allow anyone to resist it. It carried supreme majesty, causing the immortals and Buddhas on the high platforms to take out their magical treasures and surround Ning Fan. A moment ago, Ning Fan was still the champion of the second round of the mausoleum seizing competition. But now, he had become the sinner who destroyed the punishment rings without permission. No one would care whether Ning Fan destroyed the punishment rings of his own will or whether the person who destroyed the rings was someone else. Countless blades and swords were pointed at Ning Fan. Countless killing intent locked onto Ning Fan. This was a situation that even the Heaven Capital Emperor could not protect. He gritted his teeth unwillingly and shook his head. Humph. It seemed like he could not protect Ning Fan with his own strength. If he does not carry out his duty as one of the 5 emperors of the Middle State and kill Ning Fan, his future would only be death. Forget it. That important matter is more important. My life is equally important. I can only let Ning Fan down. Where is my South Sea spring water? Ning Fan suppressed his anger and asked the Heaven Capital Emperor. The trap had become a fact and the pursuit was imminent. However, there was still one thing that had not been resolved. He wanted the South Sea spring water. That was the reward that he should have obtained. That was the bargaining chip that he used to make a deal with the 100-Flower Emperor. The Heaven Capital Emperor's eyes were cold and emotionless. There was no trace of his previous solicitude. He did not even bother to answer Ning Fan's question. The one who answered him was the 100-Flower Emperor. I'm sorry. It's impossible for me to give you the South Sea spring water. I don't need your South Sea spring water anymore. Our previous agreement is invalid from now on. I don't dare to make any deal with you and risk the world's condemnation. It's impossible for me to tell you the whereabouts of that item. You better surrender now. Otherwise, I don't mind taking action against these 2 women. The 100-Flower Emperor smiled coldly. Then, she waved her hand and displayed a divine ability, restraining Zhang Yu and Ouyang Nuan who were caught off guard. She had decided to break her agreement with Ning Fan. If she makes any deal with a sinner who destroyed the punishment ring, she would be punished the same way as the sinner. She no longer dared to tell Ning Fan the whereabouts of that item. Even if she had to break her agreement, she would not dare to do so. In the face of such a great calamity, the 100-Flower Emperor would certainly not stand on Ning Fan's side. As for the South Sea spring water, Wu Yan's ranking was enough to get it anyway. As for Ning Fan. Not only did she have to break her agreement, but she also had to join the team that hunted him down. Otherwise, she would be dragging herself into trouble, so what if she betrayed an external cultivator? I'm sorry, external cultivator. It's you who didn't protect the punishment ring well. If you want to blame someone, blame yourself. The Buddha Sob Emperor also changed his usual friendly tone. His killing intent locked onto Ning Fan and he was the first to attack him. The corner of Ning Fan's mouth curved into a cold smile. Ridiculous. How ridiculous. It was ridiculous that he was reluctant to destroy the punishment ring after going through so many life and death situations. Yet, he was so easily framed by others. It was his carelessness. The result of his carelessness was being ganged up on by the experts of the world. Qi Ning Fan used the soaring golden light to avoid the Buddha Sob Emperor's attack. Since he had already recovered his cultivation base, the forbidden power of the middle state was no longer a problem for him. With his extreme speed, he directly avoided the Buddha Sob Emperor's attack. With just a flash, he evaded the Buddha Sob Emperor's attack and approached the 100-Flower Emperor. With a wave of his right hand, the ocean-defying sword immediately appeared in his hand and he swung it. The heavy sword light forced the 100-Flower Emperor's beautiful face to tremble. She withdrew her body immediately, not daring to take the ocean-defying sword head-on with her severely injured body. Ouyang Nuan and Zhang Yu, who were originally restrained by the 100-Flower Emperor's ability, instantly regained their freedom. Do we have a grudge against each other? Ning Fan's baleful qi spread out like a violent gust of wind and asked the silver-robed immortal emperor in the sky with a deep voice. Just the strength of his baleful qi alone had made many immortals and Buddhas blush and retreat while coughing out blood. Ordinary people could not even withstand Ning Fan's baleful qi. What a terrifying killing intent. Even the 5 emperors of the middle state had their expressions changed slightly because of this wave of baleful qi. However, the silver-robed immortal emperor casually extinguished the baleful qi that shot up to the clouds with a single palm strike and said with a disdainful smile. We don't have a grudge against each other. However, I have been paid by someone to eliminate a calamity for them. According to that person, your techniques are quite impressive. Even immortal emperors would find it difficult to kill you. Besides, you also have a lot of escape methods. It doesn't seem easy for me to kill you with a sneak attack. If I'm not careful, you might even escape. However, if I destroy your punishment ring and make you the enemy of the entire great clan, so what? Now, I'm not the only one who wants to kill you. The entire great clan wants to kill you. What can you do about it? Do you know that I have never intended to fight against the great clan? However, if you don't fight now, you will die. Moreover, there are thousands of people who want to kill you to gain merit. Look, you are working for that 100-Flower Emperor, but she did not speak up for you at all. Moreover, she even has the intention to kill you now. Tiandu also seemed to have met you once at night. Their relationship is not shallow. Unfortunately, he is not going to walk the same path as you. You no longer have any companions by your side. As for those 2 women, I don't think they can be of any help to you. Perhaps, that servant of yours is slightly stronger than them. However, it's useless. No one can save you now. Die. Qi, the silver-robed immortal emperor, suddenly stopped talking. His figure flashed and disappeared without a trace. The moment he disappeared, the heavenly capital monarch, the bone spirit monarch, the 100-Flower monarch, and the Buddha Sob monarch disappeared too. At the next moment, the figures of the 5 emperors shrouded Ning Fan, Ouyang Nuan, and Zhang Yu from 5 different directions. The combined might of the 5 emperors made heaven and earth lose its color. The unusual phenomenon of the emperor's wrath and lightning engulfed the entire sky above Lioli City. At this moment, Tu Huang frowned coldly. He raised his finger, which was filled with unprecedented killing intent. It was as if he was going to press down on the 5 emperors from a distance. As long as she was here, she would not allow anyone to hurt Ning Fan. This was her promise to Ning Fan. She would never break it. But immediately after, he raised his finger and put it down with a slightly surprised expression. It was because there was no need for her to do anything. Even though the attacks of the 5 emperors were extremely strong, Ning Fan was also infuriated at this moment. If he is angry, he would not need to fear the combined might of the 5 emperors. Without the suppression of the punishment ring, Ning Fan was like a fierce tiger that had been freed from its ropes and a flood dragon that had entered the water. He wanted to settle everything peacefully. However, if there was no other way out, the only thing he could do was to resist. He might not be able to kill immortal emperors, but ordinary immortal emperors would not be able to hurt him either. At the moment when the 5 emperors' combined attack was about to reach him, Ning Fan's body suddenly emitted a large amount of golden flames, preventing the 5 emperors from getting close to him. Then, the golden flames condensed into a 100 zhang tall giant of golden flames, enveloping Ning Fan and the others within it. No matter how strong the attacks of the 5 emperors were, they could not break the defense of the golden flame giant at all. The attacks of the immortal emperors who had used all of their strength could only leave a shallow scratch on the armor of the golden-eyed giant. What kind of ability is this? The fact that the 5 emperors' combined attack was futile caused the silver-robed immortal emperor's face to be filled with shock. Before he could finish his words, he saw the giant holding the shield in his left hand in front of him and violently charging at him. The force of the collision caused the silver-robed immortal emperor to spurt out blood and retreat. His expression was filled with fear. What level of defense is this? What kind of impact force is this? How could it appear on an external venerated immortal cultivator? The information that the dark race gave him was completely wrong. After sending the silver-robed immortal emperor flying with a single attack, Ning Fan did not continue his attack. Instead, he carried the might of his previous attack and asked the crowd coldly. I'm only going to ask you one last time. Is there really no way to resolve today's matter peacefully? There's no way to resolve today's matter peacefully. Your punishment ring has been destroyed. You must die. The silver-robed immortal emperor shouted angrily. Because he was slightly injured by Ning Fan, his true flame was ignited. All right then. Since there's no way to resolve this peacefully, let's not do so. The reason the Xing ring was destroyed is because I wasn't vigilant enough, giving you a chance to sneak attack me. In the matters of cultivation, there is no such thing as being despicable or not. Since your method succeeded, then I can only admit defeat. I don't blame you for trying to kill me. After all, our positions are different. You have your own rules that you want to protect and I also have my own things that I want to protect. However, since it's a battle between us, don't blame me for being merciless. For those who don't participate in this matter, I can still call you my friends. However, for those who want to take my life and those who want to kill me, I won't show any mercy. I will definitely make you pay with your blood. The golden-armored giant sucked Old Wu, who was among the crowd, into his stomach. Then, he leaped and flew towards the outside of Lioli City. With the god-exterminating shield protecting him, Ning Fan was not afraid of being surrounded by the 5 immortal emperors. However, the aura that was slowly rising from the Great Brightness Temple made him feel fearful. This was the place where the Light Buddha lived. The moment his punishment ring was destroyed, the giant statue of the Light Buddha actually showed signs of awakening. A half-step quasi-saint realm aura was descending from the giant statue bit by bit. The Light Buddha is coming. It was an existence that even the current god-exterminating shield could not defend against. It was not advisable to stay in this place for long. I must leave before the Light Buddha arrives. Initially, Ning Fan wanted to bring Tu Huang along with him and rely on him to protect himself. However, as soon as this thought emerged in his mind, he extinguished it. No matter how strong Tu Huang was, he was just on par with the Light Buddha. Besides, judging from his aura, he seemed to be slightly weaker than the Light Buddha. Tu Huang was a member of the Great Humble Clan and he had a strong sense of belonging to the clan. He could not drag Tu Huang into this matter. If Tu Huang was just a stranger, Ning Fan would not care whether he was willing to or not. He would directly drag Tu Huang into this mess. There was a cold-blooded and heartless side to him when he cultivated the Tao. However, Tu Huang's kindness and the strange feeling that Tu Huang gave him were still lingering in his mind. It made him unable to be ruthless and pushed Tu Huang to the opposite side of the entire Great Humble clan. It's better not to drag her into this pursuit that I can't escape from. He could not bear to let her be spurned by all of her fellow clan members. Unfortunately, even though Ning Fan wanted Tu Huang to stay out of this matter, Tu Huang did not want to stay out of it at all. Before Ning Fan's god-exterminating giant flew too far away from Liuli City, Tu Huang's playful voice resounded on Ning Fan's shoulder. You actually want to abandon me for such a good thing. The giant was flying in a crouching position. As for Tu Huang, he was currently sitting on the giant's shoulder with his legs crossed. His fingers were tidying up his hair, which was messed up by the wind. The eye patch could not hide the gentleness in his eyes. The corners of his lips were curved into a mesmerizing smile. Little Dai, I will never abandon you, I'm sorry. I said something that even I don't understand. I don't understand anything about butterflies at all. Next, you don't need to do anything. I just need to settle this matter. I am very angry. A mere 7 tribulation immortal emperor actually dared to scheme against my subordinate and destroy his punishment.